The October 8th, 2024 regular meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors is hereby called to order. We will begin with the land acknowledgement. Will Student Representative Covarrubias, how do you say your last name, please?
Covarrubias.
Thank you.
We acknowledge the original inhabitants of this area, the Stahobes people, and their successor, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. In Everett Public Schools, we strive to create equitable outcomes and build a culture of inclusive belongings for all students, teachers, staff, and community.
Thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And unless you're in uniform, please remove your hat.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And will the secretary please call the roll?
President Mitchell.
Present.
Vice President Herman.
Present.
Director Atkins.
Present.
Director Mason.
Present.
Director Revelinsky.
Present.
Student Representative Kink. Student Representative Covarrubias.
Present.
Thank you. This brings us to section 5.0, adoption of the agenda. Dr. Saltzman, were there any changes to the agenda after it was published?
Yes, Madam Chair, there have been two changes to this agenda. Item 7.01, the superintendent's report, the presentation was updated. And item 11.14, approval of Sonatrol Services sole source, the situation statement was updated. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any objection to the meeting agenda being adopted by general consent? Seeing none, the agenda is adopted by general consent. And this brings us to section 16.0, recognitions, which is truly our favorite part of every meeting. These are the September core value champions. Ms. Weinberg.
Good evening, President Mitchell, Board of Directors, Superintendent Saltzman, and student representatives. Thank you for the time tonight to celebrate our September core value champions, where we are highlighting the core value of respect. Each school in our district has chosen a deserving student to honor. Their names will be displayed on our website for recognition, and they will also receive a certificate at their school. This evening, though, we are grateful to have core champions in this room representing 3 of our schools. The principal from each of those schools will introduce their student and explain why they were selected. I'm going to kindly request that all principals and students remain at the front until all 3 students have been acknowledged. Following the presentations, I'll take a group photo with all of you and our students and the principals. Family and friends, you're of course welcome to join me when I snap those photos, so we'll have a nice little photo shoot. Right now, we're going to go ahead and recognize the students today in this order, and we're going to start with, we'll start with Elizabeth Kelly from Lowell Elementary, then we'll go to Dr. Tyler Ream from North Middle School, and then we'll go to Kathy Stillwell from Garfield Elementary School. Again, thank you, Board, for your attention and support of our students' achievements.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to recognize Lowell first grader Desan Paulus for being an amazing example of this month's Everett Public Schools core value. His teacher nominated him as the classroom award recipient because he always treats everyone in the learning community with respect. She said that he is always friendly and kind, building others up and offering to help them. And I've seen this for myself in our hallways as he gives our Lowell Leopard thumbs up, silent thumbs up, as a way of greeting others. He also displays an awareness of what's going on around him and what others are experiencing, and he steps in to comfort or to help others appropriately, even when not asked to, which is just so respectful. So thank you, Desan, for being so respectful, and keep up the amazing work.
Good evening. I am so happy to bring Matthew forward. He's a star. He's the star. Matthew Cervantes is a seventh grader at North and an outstanding representative of what it means to be respectful. Originally nominated by his teacher, Deb Carmen Jansen, Matthew became our school's choice after our whole North team got together and agreed that no one is more deserving of this honor than Matthew. He treats all with respect, both fellow students and staff alike. He sees the value and potential in everyone, and as such, he treats each person with compassion and care. He is a joy to work with each day and held in high regard across our North campus. And as a school community, we want to thank Matthew and we want to thank his family for the example that he is for everybody on our campus. Congratulations, Matthew.
So, hi, I'm Kathy Stillwell, Principal of Garfield Elementary. I just have to share with you, this is a surprise. So she is just learning about this, and I'm so excited. Thank you, family, for helping us with this surprise. This is Ella Esquivel, and she is an outstanding Garfield Elementary fifth grader. She has started this year very strong, and she always strives to be respectful and to everyone. She is a role model for her peers and a student leader. She works hard, is a friend to everyone. She is literally the highlight of my day when I see her smiling face, almost on cue. So proud of her and can't wait to see what her future holds. Congratulations, Ella. You are core value champion representing Garfield well in the value of respect, and you are a Garfield Tiger that has earned her stripes. Thank you.
And then families, feel free to come up and get photos too. All right, yeah, tap, just a reminder. Good. Doing great. Smile, smile. You have so much respect, and I appreciate you guys. Awesome. Did you guys get what you needed? Yes. You want one more? One more right here. I'll get one too. Oh, let's do it together. There it is. Thank you. One more. Okay, one more, because that was a really good idea. Okay. All right, great. Thanks, guys.
Well, and to even make the recognition a surprise, thank you, Ms. Stillwell. Okay, so now we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Saltzman.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, Board Directors, and to the public this evening. And congratulations again to our students, because respect is crucial to our world today, so congratulations. I'd like to take the time tonight to speak to our public in my report on the focus of safety. Safety is a priority in our schools. Quality instruction and student achievement is our commitment, but safety is a full commitment. There have been bomb threats across the nation. There's also some bomb threats that impacted the Everett community. Not done by our students, but it impacted our community. I want to share with everybody that in every school is an outstanding educator, an outstanding student, and staff that deserves the best day. And when you have bomb threats, it slows down the day. You make a false bomb threat, it is a federal crime. This district will not tolerate these bomb threats. To our students, it is a federal crime if you're the one calling in. And we don't want that to ruin anyone's life. So we just want to reiterate that safety is crucial, not only to public education in Everett, but public education across our country. Thank you for that part of my report this evening. I want to take time now to thank our community. Generous gifts that they give to our students and families is just unbelievable. Tonight, we have had several items on the consent agenda that significantly impacts the lives of our students. First, I would express a huge thank you to Little Bipsy, a local Everett-based company, for their generous donation of 11,500 polo shirts valued over $59,000. These shirts will support families at Whittier and Hawthorne Elementary Schools by meeting school uniform requirements, making a meaningful difference with both students and families. I will also want to acknowledge our Outdoor Schools Washington for the donation of over $135,000 that will help cover the cost of 5th grade camp for students at Emerson, Madison, Whittier, and Penny Creek Elementary Schools. These are incredible contributions that enhance our students' learning and the well-being of their lives. Henry M. Jackson High School has earned a silver spot on the 2024 AP School Honor Roll. This is a recognition that highlights schools that help more students take AP courses, succeed on AP exams, and prepare for college. 65% of the class of 2024 took at least one AP exam, 35% scored 3 or higher, and 22% took 5 or more exams. They were just a little busy, okay? I want to publicly thank the AI committee. These are a group of dedicated teachers, district staff, and administrators that are gathering to focus on providing guidance and evaluating AI tools, advising on policy and procedures, and monitoring the impact on education, and how are we going to use AI as it changes daily in the lives of many, and how we're going to use it in our school system. And kudos to our teacher committee. I've heard from many teachers it was one of the best committees they've been on, so thank you for doing that, team. October is Principal Appreciation Month. Our amazing principals are the heart of our schools, leading with dedication and passion. They rise to the challenge daily, supporting students and staff to help everyone reach their full potential. And they also help model and teach our assistant principals to one day be principals. So to everybody, we're so proud of you and keep up the amazing work. I want to again thank everybody for this evening, and I wish everybody a wonderful Tuesday. And with all the natural disasters that are occurring, I pray for everybody across the country. Thank you.
Dr. Saltzman, it is now time for board comments. Director Herman, could you start us out, please?
Absolutely. Since our last meeting, it's been several weeks. Mainly what I'll be reporting on is going to be an update during legislative assembly, or legislative general assembly during the legislative update later on in the agenda. But I also just wanted to share some feedback on, and we have in our agenda tonight, an update on the start of school, and parents and teachers and students I've talked to have really been positive. So I'm looking forward to that presentation tonight. Specifically, I've had people call out Parent Square, and they're really happy with how it's working. So well done on the rollout of that. And also, I think as our student representatives have already mentioned, the cell phone policy does seem to be having a positive impact in the classrooms. And lastly, I think some of our directors have been able to do instructional reviews. I have not yet started them, but really looking forward to starting those next week with Heather Wood. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Atkins?
Yeah, speaking of instructional reviews, I got the opportunity to participate in my first instructional review last week. Got to go to North Middle School and just see some of the amazing work that our teachers and staff are doing, and looking forward to future instructional reviews. And that's all for my report.
Director Mason?
Yeah, mine's a little bit repetitive of Director Herman. I, too, have heard lots of positive feedback about Parent Square, that it's really just streamlining communications, especially both from parents' perspective and staff perspective. And then also, the cell phone. I think there's been some great momentum both in our country, but also in our district to really change behavior. And I think it's paying off tenfold. So I'm just super excited to see that happening because it's not just the parents implementing it, it's the students agreeing to it as well. So probably not every student, but in general, it seems to be going really well. And again, I've just heard so many great things about the start of the school year. There's always little hiccups along the way because it's a big district, but it's been amazing. So thank you.
Yeah. Director Revelinsky.
Excuse me. First, for the core value champions, congratulations. Showing respect is so important. I loved hearing how kind and helpful and compassionate and caring you are. Thank you for being yourselves and for having a positive impact. You serve as an example for all of us. I'd like to thank Dr. Saltzman for your report. I think I appreciate the focus on AI. It's here to stay, that's for sure. I'd also like to thank you for the book that you gave, The AI Savvy Leader by David DeCreamer. I had a great time at Cascades Open House. The community is phenomenal. It was the energy was just so positive. There were so many great things. There was even a like a welding simulator by the front of the gym. I thought it was awesome. I also got to go on the bus that Durham donated, and the students have already started working on it. It's just super impressive, and I'd like to thank Durham again for giving our kids the opportunity to do that. I went to a PTA meeting at Eisenhower where Dr. Gideon presented the instructional review materials, and it's just overwhelmingly positive. I'm so proud of those folks there, and I would just say keep up the good work. I think it's awesome. Finally, about a year ago, a gentleman made an impassioned appeal to the board around school security, which moved me personally. And for that reason, I want to provide a little bit of context around the Sonatrol sole source approval within the consent agenda today, and that is that it's really focused on the service component of the contract we have with them, as opposed to the hardware. And for a wholesale replacement of the security systems, we really need a levy. And so I would encourage community members that care deeply to get involved in our levy process and support our next levy. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Student Representative Kink.
I'd just like to comment on how well the sports teams are doing. I love seeing some friendly competition within the district, and I've made it to almost every Jackson home and away game so far. Jackson, Everett, Cascade have all been playing really well. It's great to see Dr. Saltzman and other district members come to the games too. We love seeing you guys like cheer on the student section. And I think it makes school more fun, just having something to look forward to at the end of the week. And it's great for our community and student athletes. And we've had some great attendance. And similar to Director Herman and Director Mason, the cell phone policy on the middle high school level has been very effective so far. Compared to like 2 years ago when everyone would be glued to their phones in class, you hardly see anyone. This is thanks to the teachers who've done a good job of really enforcing the policy, and the students for being more engaged and taking some accountability themselves. And I'm glad to see that this is what school is going to be like from now on.
My report is mostly on Avid and how well it's been used by students and teachers, mostly on our new onboarding class, if anyone has heard of them. Also, students have been going to programs and activities offered this year more than last year, mostly for the ASB elections. I think that has to do mostly because of the phone policy. Students have been very respectful and more involved in school because of it.
Thank you both. And I was at Gateway today and forgot about the phone policy, but in being all the classrooms and seeing 2 pastimes, I did not see a single phone. So it is I recognize in the middle school. I don't know if that's a change or just how it's always been, but it was nice to see. But I've been to 2 IRs so far. The first one being at Emerson, where really seeing the progression of their dual language program and how their students are continuing to exceed expectations based on their poverty. that really eliminating poverty is a reason that kids aren't achieving, and Emerson is showing that in spades. And then at Gateway, just really seeing their changing demographic, and so really putting a faster focus on multilanguage learners, and really seeing the changes that they're going to make there. And then it was a busy day today because I was also invited to go to Cass Tailored, which is a business partner over the summer for one of our mentorship programs. And they asked to meet with me and showed me a recent Cascade graduate who was working in one of their shops, and just sort of talking about how maybe they could, really be a good district partner. Really did see them as a career, direct-to-career employer right here in the community. So that was a really nice visit today. So thank you. And so now we'll move on to section 9.0, which is public comment. Dr. Saltzman, are there any requests for public comment?
I believe there's one public speaker tonight.
Yes, and I have it right here. Thank you. The Board of Directors sets aside 15 minutes during regular board meetings to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and want to hear and understand the perspectives you bring to the table. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. As board president, I have the responsibility to ensure that our board meetings are conducted, at our board meetings, we conduct district business in public. We do this in an orderly, productive, and respectful manner. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same manner, and we thank you for helping me keep that responsibility. The entire board welcomes you to this meeting. It is important, though, that you understand how this portion of the board meeting is conducted. We will call you to the podium to speak in the order in which you signed up. We just have one tonight. All comments are recorded, so the board will have access to everything said tonight. Repetition is not necessary, as it really does cut into your time. The public comments part of the agenda is for the board to listen to what you have to say and not for a time for debate or discussion. Board members do not respond to individual comments, but we will respond in writing at your request. And so I have here a public comment request from Catherine Fuller. If you want to come up to the podium, she is a parent and a substitute teacher in the district. You will have 3 minutes to speak as soon as those lights light up. That will start it. A yellow light will signal you have 30 seconds left, and then red means that we need you to step away. So as soon as that green light lights up, whoever is manning that. Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Good evening. As you noticed, I am a substitute teacher and a parent of a student who goes to Evergreen. This is their first year at Evergreen. We have some concerns about the transportation. On August 30th, the bus systems was all set, and it was supposed to be a thing that was accessible. So I got on the website to look and see if my student was, when their route was and all the things. And they were not assigned a route. When I look on the main page of the transportation website on the school district website, it says that Who Can Ride is every student K through 12 who lives half a mile away from the school. And we do. We live a mile. We live technically over a mile, but because we're back tucked into a condo, I understand that. That's fine. It's a mile though. When I called the transportation department to let them know, they said, no, it isn't a mile. And that a mile is the rule, not the half mile, even though that's what it says on the website. They say 1 mile is the thing. I say, okay, we are a mile. They say, no, you're not. You're 9.64. I say, okay, I get that. That's pretty darn close though. But also it says in case of events that there are dangerous routes. So the first 2 days of school, I walked with my child because, they're a brand new 6th grader. They're a little bit spacey. So I walked my 6th grader. We would go, and the first day we took a side street because we're supposed to go back through these side streets. There are no sidewalks. And there's these very tall bushes, and a car came careening around the corner, nearly hit us. And she did like this. And I said, oh, and we were okay. I said, we are not walking this way. So we took a different side street. On that one, at the corner, there is a very scary house. Many of the windows are boarded up. This morning, there were 9 cars parked out front. 2 of them have busted out windows. On the way home, there were only 6 cars. 3 of them were the same cars. There were 3 new ones. One day, there was a lady who had at least 7 pill bottles spilled out on the front of one of these cars. There's frequently a dog running around, not on a leash. There's large groups of men out front of this place. It does appear that some of the people are living in some of these cars. And it's not just one side of the street, because now they're on the other side of the street also. And there is no way to avoid this house. It's on every side street that we go on. So I called again, and I've called every Monday of the school year to talk about this. Finally, I did get through to the director, and she was really rude to me and said that, no, you only live a mile. And I said, okay, but I don't. And she said, okay, take this other route. And the other route is 1.3 miles. I did some research. I found a different bus stop that's actually 0.6 miles from my house. That is right next to the elementary school my child already used to go to. So it's a route they already knew. She said no. I called again, and they said that I was not the priority, that this was not their concern, and that at the end of October, they would reevaluate. The problem is that I'm a substitute teacher, and there's multiple days that I have not been able to accept jobs because there's no way that I can get my kid to and from school safely. And so there's been unfilled teaching positions those days because I haven't been able to take them. So it's my concern.
Thank you for that. You did request a response in writing,
I did.
and we will get back to you.
Thanks
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Now we'll move on to section 10.0, legislative updates. Director Herman.
Terrific, thank you. So to catch everyone up, in September, we had WASDA's General Assembly, and just as a reminder for any of the public watching, the General Assembly is the annual event at which directors from across the state can update the platform that WASDA uses for advocacy at the state level. So it's an important tool that we use to make sure that school director voices are heard. At the General Assembly, we had about 120 school districts from around the state represented. And as I explained earlier, that this year there was an interesting update. The process had been altered a little bit. That school boards would submit in the spring, you submit proposals for updates to the platform. And then this year what they did is you could submit amendments. And so that meant that there were no live amendments during the General Assembly itself, which made the entire event so much smoother. We actually finished discussions and voting actually on the first day. So it was very smooth. And for the WASDA advocacy platform, overall, we ended up at the end of the day consolidating 2 sets of positions and retiring one that was related to COVID, and we added several new ones. So our current WASDA platform has a total of now 129 positions. And for anyone interested, these are available on the WASDA website. The 7 new legislative positions that were added this year include and I'll just list them out with a brief description now. African American Studies Work Group, basically this is asking to implement the recommendations from the 2020 work group that was created by the legislature that year, the Clean Buildings Act funding, which is requesting funding support around the mandated compliance of the Clean Buildings Act. Insurance premiums funding. This was introduced as an emergency proposal right before General Assembly and actually passed with high 90%. This is asking that WASDA would specifically support legislation to fully fund insurance premiums for school district. And this, of course, does fall under MSOC, which we talk about frequently. Another position on literacy, asking the legislature to fund districts to adopt and implement evidence-based literacy curriculum, screening, and professional development. One on mental health supports and counseling access, asking for additional support for schools to address student mental health needs. Another one, school athletics officials, supporting legislation that protects school athletic officials from harm and would hold individuals accountable. And lastly, tax revenue for schools, asking that legislation ensures that when new tax revenue is earmarked for K-12 education, such as the capital gains tax, these funds would be additive to existing funding, not supplanting current funding. And this was a big topic last year. So again, this is part of the big platform that WASDA uses. And every year when the legislature, when they start up in January and those bills get filed, it's going to be thousands of bills that get filed and several hundred that are going to impact K-12 education. And this is what WASDA uses as our biggest school director association our biggest way of advocating for what we need as school directors. So just the importance of that. And again, General Assembly happens every year for updates. So where we stood after that is we collected all our school board priorities. And this afternoon, I submitted those for WASDA. WASDA will be putting together their priority sheet. And so the priorities that we submitted for Everett included the positions on number one, and these are not necessarily in the order, but comprehensive school and student safety, multilingual learners, support for special education programs, transition to kindergarten, Clean Buildings Act funding, funding safe, healthy, contemporary school buildings, amply funded staffing levels, and full funding of basic education. And one of the things we did do at General Assembly this year was add in some language to include MSOC into that one position. So it kind of captures MSOC there as well. So as I mentioned, in the next few weeks, WASDA will be taking the input from the school directors from around the state. They will be putting together their priority list, and we will be doing the same thing for Everett. And then we will be bringing back at a future board meeting. Happy to take any questions if you have any. And before I go, it's just a reminder that for WASDA, directors should have gotten a link to vote for elections by October 16th. Up for elections are a representative to the State Board of Education, the WASDA president-elect, vice president, and we are in DA1. And we have people running for a Ledge Committee, Nominating Committee, and the Interscholastic Activities Committee. So just a reminder to vote. And that is it.
Well, thank you. That moves us on to section 11.0, or the consent agenda. Dr. Saltzman, have you received any questions about the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office received and answered 2 questions on the consent agenda.
Thank you. And first, does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place in the new business section of the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Now, is there any objection to adopting the consent agenda by general consent? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved by general consent. This moves us on to strategic progress monitoring, post-secondary enrollment patterns. Dr. Willard.
Good evening, Dr. Saltzman, Board President Mitchell, Board of Directors, and student representatives. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to share an update on our post-secondary enrollment patterns. So this evening, there'll be an update on our post-secondary enrollment aspirations from students in the district and across the state, a report on comparisons of our post-secondary enrollment for the rates for the classes of 2010 through the class of 2022, and then reporting on the post-secondary enrollment patterns for the class of 2022, which is the most recent data that we have for going on to college or a post-secondary institution. I'll also be reporting on the FAFSA completion data as of really 2 weeks ago, and describe post-secondary enrollment systems of support. So with that, when we talk about post-secondary enrollment patterns, we're really talking about reducing gaps for students, and then also ensuring that all of our students are prepared to succeed in college and career. So looking at the state, I shared data like this last year, but it's been updated ever since. We still see that across Washington state that students have aspirations for post-secondary education at a rate of about 90%. And then about 52% of our students enroll in post-secondary institutions when they graduate. This is across the state, not in our district. Of course, we're part of the state. And then lastly, we see a great improvement. Last year, we were 49th in terms of FAFSA completion, and now we are 42nd. So we are ticking up. The numbers are headed in the right direction. However, you will see, and you probably already know this, that FAFSA rates overall declined 9% across the country. So you will see that in our rates, you will see that in state rates. But it's a result of the rollout of the new FAFSA. We'll touch on some of that as well. So with that, the data that's going to be shared this evening for the classes of 2010 through 2022 come from specific data sources: the Education Research and Data Center, ERDC, the National Student Clearinghouse, which provides information for four-year institutions, our community and technical colleges, and two-year institutions, and then non-enrollment as well. We also have self-reported data from Navient, which is our high school and beyond plan tool, and Equal Opportunity Schools, which is a partnership we have to help improve our advanced placement enrollment rates, especially for students who are low income or who come from diverse backgrounds. And so we gather data that way as well. We also have FAFSA data from the national outcomes and then also from our state. So with that, we're looking more closely at our district. When we look at this, our college aspirations in our district, that information is collected through Equal Opportunity Schools. We survey students in the fall. We're about to do that again here in October and early November. But this is data from last year. And so students revealed to us a very similar pattern that we see for the state, but also the pattern we see for our district over many years, which is that we see students at approximately 90% overall aspiring, but we do see differences in groups of students. And you will see that the aspiration data also is reflected when you see the post-secondary enrollment rates in later slides as well, where you see very high rates of post-secondary enrollment in our Asian students, especially medium and high income students. And then going on where you see that our post-secondary enrollment rates for Hispanic students is lower. So our support is always to reach to all students, but especially where we see gaps. And so I'll share that too as we go forward. This is an overall picture starting with the class of 2010 through the class of 22, which is the most recent data that we have for a complete class going on for post-secondary enrollment. What you'll see here is that, of course, like we saw last year, there was a dip with the pandemic. We saw a decline in our enrollment rates, but not as far as the state's rates also dipped. Ours dipped down to 59% with the class of 2021. But what you'll also see is that they've gone back up to 62%, which is more in line with what we've seen over the many years of collecting data, and even before 2010 if you were to look at previous data. Also, I should note that when we start looking at FAFSA rates, that our FAFSA rates had also declined, and they don't necessarily match what we'd seen traditionally as a pattern. And though that slide's not up here, FAFSA has often been the leading indicator for knowing whether our rates would go up or down, and you're going to see that they don't exactly match as we get later into the slides. So we're seeing great improvements in that area, and then we won't know yet for the last two classes of students, but we're hopeful that there's been some opportunities for kids to choose to go on for different institutions. Much of our data remains pretty steady even within those students who go on to a post-secondary enrollment. What you'll see here is that just like it's been for all of the classes all the way through 2010 that I've been reporting on, you see a similar pattern where the state overall about 20%, but in the case of this particular year, the class of 22, 24% of students went out of state. For our district, you would also see similar rates over time. Last year, it was 13% of students went out of state. This year, it's 16%. It usually hovers around 15% of our students go out of state. Most are staying in state. In terms of post-secondary enrollment by institution, what you'll see is that we've had a long-standing pattern of about 50-50. 50% go on to a two-year or community and technical college, and about 50% go on to a four-year institution. What we're seeing here is that for the class of 2022, we actually saw an increase in the students going on to a four-year institution. You can also see some other similar patterns that we've seen over time, which haven't greatly changed, which is that our largest proportion of students go on to Everett Community College, almost a quarter of which, here it's 24%, and that's fairly consistent. And then second to that is really the University of Washington, any of the campuses, whether it's Seattle, Bothell, or Tacoma show up in this data. But what we're seeing here, which we didn't see typically, is an increase in our 4-year rates. This is also the year in which we rolled out our guaranteed admission program to students. So it was the first year in which we had an automatic way to tell students that they would be admitted to 4-year institutions at one of the institutions in our state that offer it, and 2 private institutions as well. I'll highlight that a little bit more. But this class is going to show some of this repeated pattern in going on to 4-year institutions. It's not clear if it's really driven by that, but we'll see when we get future years data as well. So in terms of patterns by race and ethnicity, what you'll see is very similar patterns to previous years. There is a star next to our African American Black students, because what doesn't show up here is that over a very slow course from 2010 on to 2022, that there was a slow increase in students going on to a post-secondary institution. We actually saw over those years very slow incremental changes where there was a decrease of 10% of not enrolling after graduation, and then also an increase of 8% of Black or African American students going on to a 4-year institution. So both of those showing that we're seeing gains in that area, whereas other groups have been fairly stable over that same time period. There's also some hidden gems in this data as well. So this is broken out by gender, female and male, and we see increases in students going on, our female students going on at a slightly higher rate than they had previously, 4% higher, to 4-year institutions. And for our boys, going on to 4-year institutions at a slightly higher rate of 3% than they did in previous years. When it comes to post-secondary enrollment by programs, which is free and reduced lunch, our multilingual learner students, and our students with disabilities, these rates remain fairly stable. This is an area of work for us, and it continues to be. Some of the ways that we've addressed this over the past year, and will continue to do so, is with our multilingual learner students, we have provided ongoing support with translation services and many financial aid events, and also college application support. Ongoing and very focused, especially this past year where we've had a grant called the Limitless Learning Network Grant, which was through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's allowed us to put more resources into this areas. And what we don't know yet is the impact of that work, because this would have happened last year, on future rates. So we know this is an area where we need to improve. We also are spending more time in professional development with our teachers of students with disabilities to ensure that they know pathways to college or employment so that those are accessible to students, and spending more time around our high school and beyond plan for senior year to make sure that those plans really allow students to transition. Again, this has been building. We would have seen more of this last year, and this data would have been from 2 years ago. So we're hoping to make a real impact on the data that you see here, especially because it's been fairly static. Going on with our post-secondary enrollment by GPA, our guaranteed admission program, just so you know, is also set around a GPA. Many enrollment pieces are around GPA. It's really that 3.0 that really stands out, and that's why it's used when we collect data. What you'll see here is that students who have a GPA of less than 3.0, we actually saw increases in terms of students going on to a post-secondary institution. Last year, you would have seen 70% of students not going on and not enrolling. But what we also see embedded here is we saw those gains really in 2-year and community and technical colleges at a rate of 9% higher. And then for our students with a GPA of 3.0 or higher, what you'll see there is we also saw a decrease in the number of students not enrolling and an 8% increase in the students going on to a 4-year institution. Another piece of data that we collect, but this is collected separately, is through our high school and beyond plan survey that we work with students on in their senior year. It's an opportunity for them to tell us what their intended post-secondary outcome will be. It's the only place that we really can collect military enlistment data. So for the class of 2022, 23 students identified that the military was where they would enlist when they graduated. And this was a little bit higher than the previous year where there were 16 students, but we generally see about 20 students each year who tell us that they're going to go on and join the military. So you can see that we have students in many different branches there. With that, I'm going to pivot to the FAFSA completion rates. And like I was highlighting, the FAFSA was rolled out last year. It was supposed to be a new improved FAFSA. It was supposed to be easier to fill out. And what they found in the meantime is that it was very difficult for families to fill out, especially if a family member did not have a Social Security number. That was our #1 problem with helping students complete the FAFSA. It would hold them up, make them take additional steps such as phone calls, send in paperwork. There's been a recent committee working on what was not working in this FAFSA last year, and there were 55 direct errors that impacted students. There were over 5 million calls made, and only a fraction of those were returned. So families were really not getting support in completing that. That being said, it was rolled out in January, but most of it could not be completed until what you saw in April and May. Our district had 14 separate events that helped students and families to complete it. I can tell you from personal experience that many times it was the very same family and student returning so that they could take the next step once they had a little bit more information based on the errors that were available. So what you see in this data here is that our FAFSA rates declined also, but not at the rate that we saw for the nation, which was 9%, or at the same rate that we saw for the state, where it dropped 4% to 48%. They are still allowing the FAFSA to be completed, though, right now, so I can tell you this is still live data. But normally, we would use this as our leading indicator for going on to a post-secondary institution. But like I was sharing, there was a departure in the year before where it really didn't match that. So I'm very hopeful that although the rates show this, colleges were often working out plans for students if they were interested, and that data is still being submitted even right now to make sure that they have financial plans. So we really won't know that until we get further along. To support students, obviously, we are ensuring that all of our students graduate on time and that it's really the jumping off place for them to engage in their post-secondary aspirations and dreams. There's 3 key components which I share regularly with you. Our High School and Beyond plan is a key component. It's really where we learn from students grades 6 through 12 what their plans are for the future. It's an integral piece to what students do to ensure that they're ready to graduate. And then, of course, our core and subject area requirements are also aligned to students making choices about what they want to take in high school that may help them inform what they're going to do when they graduate. And then our graduation pathway options are the tests. They're the projects, they're the courses that they might take that also allow them to fulfill their graduation requirements. All of these are lined up to align with their post-secondary aspirations. So with that, inside of our graduation requirements for our district, we have a half-credit requirement for graduation. Students need to take the College and Career Readiness Seminar or one of the course equivalents. There are several of them: AP Government, AP Research, Intro to Education. There's a few others that allow students to have experiences and also work on pieces that we would like them to have before they graduate. This year, we actually built out additional pieces around this curriculum so that it's aligned with those graduation pathways. So last year, they rolled out, the state did, that we could have a portfolio or a performance-based pathway requirement. What we've done in our district is that we built out that particular pathway in our College and Career Readiness Seminar class. And we took some of the components that were already in that class or in the course equivalencies, and we built them out into scaffolded units so that students can explore deeper their pathway and financial literacy. So when students complete College and Career Readiness Seminar, what they will also be completing is they will complete their math and their ELA pathway. And so what that looks like is that for the English Language Arts pathway, they have a project that they put together and a portfolio of some of the things that they research around planning my pathway, the different topics around career research, education and training, financial aid, and seeking employment. It gives students a lot of choice about what it is that they're going to look deeply into, as well as completing the tasks that are required for the high school and beyond plan. For the math pathway, it's around financial literacy. So units around spending and saving, credit and debt, and investing, and allows students to explore those topics based on their interests, and then allows them to develop a portfolio based on that. So all of those are submitted in the course and allow them to meet their graduation pathway as a result, which means that it lines them up even more closely for graduation. Last week, tomorrow, and in about 2 weeks, we're going to have our high school and beyond events, which help students and families really think about their next plans in terms of post-graduation. They're also great events for just recruiting for YMCA. I saw a lacrosse club. I saw some other great events, employment opportunities. So at Cascade, the event took place last Wednesday in the evening along with their curriculum night. Tomorrow, Jackson High School will host theirs. It's a very large attended event with many breakout sessions that students and families attend from throughout the community. And then Everett High School has a unique way of presenting theirs on October 22nd, which is during the school day, so that all of their students are able to experience it in the middle of the day from 11 to 12. Families are invited in, and also Sequoia High School comes at that time. So students all have access to visiting the different booths, tables set up so that they can learn about what's available to them. Lots of opportunities around learning about colleges, also apprenticeships and many other opportunities. And then we have childcare and interpreter services available at those events as well. I've been mentioning throughout, I feel like I should have led with it only because it did show up in the data, which is that we are in our 3rd year of the Guaranteed Admission Program, and it's really 3 different programs that we're part of. So we are in a partnership with the state around 6 of the universities there. Those are the 6 public universities listed there: Central, Eastern, Evergreen, University of Washington, Tacoma specifically, Washington State University, and Western. And then we have 2 separate agreements with private universities, Pacific Lutheran and St. Martin's. And so all of these are available to our students. So what this means is that students aren't guaranteed to be admitted. They still have to fill out the application, but they are guaranteed to be admitted if they meet the GPA requirement, which is primarily 3.0, except for Pacific Lutheran, which is 3.3, and if they meet the course requirements, which are referred to as the College Academic Distribution Requirements. CADRs is how we refer to those. Lots of things to know about in terms of course taking. So when students meet those requirements at this point in the year, their data is submitted. They've agreed to it during all the forms that are submitted at the beginning of the year, and we submit that to each of those universities. And then students and their families receive an email that tells them that they have been, that they will be admitted as soon as they fill out the paperwork, and they would be accepted. So last month, and really the last 2 weeks, emails have been going out, about a third, even more than that. Not quite a half, because our current class is 1,280 students, but somewhere in that window of our seniors have already been accepted, whether they realize it or not, to college, one of these. And so it may not be where they want to go, but it gives them options for considering. And it also takes out that fear or the barrier that they may not be accepted, because our universities are really ready for them. And those are very high marks, and they're rewarded for that as a result. Pacific Lutheran, a little less, only because they have a little higher GPA. What we'll be doing over the course of the year is we will have several other uploads. We'll have one after first semester, and more students will be admitted at that point, and we'll have one closer to the end of the year. But we always tell students, regardless of that, they should always work on their application. Lots of students are accepted well outside of these ranges, and so if they need help with that, our career specialists, our high school and beyond plan facilitator, our counselors, and also our college and career readiness seminar teachers can all help support students work through that process and help them apply. And so that shouldn't rule them out either. The next program I want to highlight is really our Gear Up program. We're on another extension year. We received 2 extension years at this point to continue on with a grant that started with the 7th graders who would have graduated in 2017, they would have started in 2017 at North in 7th grade. Students graduated in 2023 were the primary recipients of this grant. We got an additional year to serve the class of 2024, and now we have one more year to serve the class of 2025. The statewide Gear Up grant is now going to be focused on very rural schools, and so they've left us in great shape in having another extension year because we have staff and resources to support helping students complete their college applications. We have college visits, lots of experiences around different types of colleges, 2-year, 4-year, and job sites. It helps pay for advanced placement, exam fees for students who don't qualify for the waiver, for the exam waiver. It helps with the FAFSA and WASFA completion. The WASFA is the Washington State version of the FAFSA. It allows students to access the state aid that's available, and this is primarily for students that wouldn't qualify. Perhaps they do not have a Social Security number. Maybe they are not a resident. For whatever the reasons are, they have access to that as well in the state of Washington. And then it helps students complete their high school and beyond planning through the Gear Up grant. And then finally, to share with you the Limitless Learning Network. So this is going to be our second year with the Limitless Learning Network. We are one of 26 partnerships across the state. It's hosted through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And this grant is scheduled and the network is scheduled for the next 3 years, this year and 2 more years. And with each year, we receive $25,000 to support some of our work, which goes into some of the familiar buckets that help students learn about some of the plans they may have for the future, college visits, having people come in and work with them around applications. We've had events where students go and sit and have direct admissions with admissions counselors. Also the FAFSA support, some of the interpreter services are all happening through there. So many different avenues where this funding is helping to support our students, especially the students where we were not moving the needle, helping them be able to complete the steps necessary. So we are in a partnership with Everett Community College and with the College Success Foundation. The larger group of us who are all partnering and part of this network are really learning from each other. So as we try things, we share things, we hear things, and we try them again. So we're continuing that process this year. It also just gives us a lot more connections in terms of our learning. So our next steps. So important this year, maybe more than in many other years, has been to strengthen the support for FAFSA and WASFA completion through our high school and beyond plan events, our financial aid advising days and financial aid workshops. Especially because of how the FAFSA was rolled out, we want to make sure that students and families are not scared or feel that the FAFSA cannot be completed. We're going to be there to support them. We're going to implement that performance-based pathway portfolio that's available through the College and Career Readiness Seminar, support students in completing the pathway options, but also as a result of doing that, make sure we're helping them through their plans for post-secondary readiness. Also, we're going to continue to develop our partnership with Everett Community College and also other colleges and universities and community organizations that are helping us to support students. And then we cannot communicate early and often enough. So this work doesn't start senior year. It doesn't even start in high school. It starts well before even middle school. Talking about it regularly with our families along the way, and it means different things at different points, means that students will be able to see some different options for them and hopefully meet their aspirations. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Willard. Are
You're
there
welcome.
any questions or comments? Yes?
About one thing.
Yeah.
Can you bring the mic closer to you, please?
Yeah, sorry. So after the pandemic, when the post-secondary rates dropped for the whole state, but ours kind of stayed steady around 60%, what was the cost for that? Like, what did we do differently? I'm just wondering.
I'd say it's what we do consistently differently, which is that you do not see districts with a college and career readiness seminar class. You do not see districts that have a tool like we do around our high school and beyond plan, where we see 100% of students logging in and completing the tasks along the way. So it's not just happening senior year, 6th grade through 12th grade. Your counselors went in the other grades. Maybe you did it in some other classes, but in senior year, maybe you're not in CCRS, but maybe a course equivalencies, but every single student experiences that. And we don't have that anywhere else, really. There's very few places where that exists. So we have a safety net as a result. I think strongly that that has been a longstanding impact on our rates.
Any other, yes?
I have a couple questions. Thanks for the presentation. Curious about the breakdown between two-year community colleges and trade and technical schools. Is it really hard to determine where our students go if it's a trade or technical, not college, but program, I guess?
Yeah, so the data that we receive back is largely aggregated, so we don't have that.
Okay.
However, there are opportunities in working with ERDC where much of the data is shared back with us, where we could put in some requests for finding out more. So,
Yeah,
and I've done that in the past over some other key pieces of the data.
I was just curious if
Yeah.
we're seeing growth opportunities as we build out our CTE programs and CTE pathways and such, and put more focus and
It would be great to
energy.
know that.
I know.
So
I know.
I will
It's
take
not-
that idea
I know.
and let me see.
It's hard data to
I just
get.
don't know what they would be able to share back with us, and it's a little bit of a research
Yeah.
process, but let me just hold that idea.
Okay. And then on the gap, do we know how many accept? And I mean, obviously, people are already planning to go to like the University of Washington, and then they get the letter. And so I guess that's probably hard data also to understand if that program is really impacting a higher level of enrollment in those colleges versus what would have naturally happened.
Yes.
Sorry,
Not-
tough questions.
No, we do not receive acceptance data, except what students self-report, which we do collect in Naviance. However, like many self-reported features, we don't know that students are going to go in and mark for every single institution whether they were accepted or not.
Yeah.
What we will see more of, which I think we could infer from, is that this would have been the first year of the guaranteed admission program, but next year when the 2023 post-secondary data is out, we should see that as a continued pattern if that would have made a difference. And also, maybe more pronounced would be some of the universities showing up on that pie chart, that those percentages would increase.
Would increase, yeah.
Yes, because that first year, students had to opt in. There were a lot more steps involved.
Okay.
Because we joined in September, like we had a week to go. They had just rolled it out, really beyond what they were piloting, and we went for it. And so we jumped in, but we didn't have some mechanisms that maybe we could do some more. We would just be able to infer more strongly that that really made an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then actually one other question, and I had sent an email earlier, and I'm guessing you've seen it, but
Yes.
too late to answer tonight. But just that wondering of, as we have more students taking college in the high school and AP classes also, is that, as they build sort of a college resume in high school, is that prompting them to think about their success in college and maybe say, I can do this, and, create higher enrollments as well. And it would be great if we could see correlations like with the GPA, 3.0 is kind of a benchmark in terms of kids going to school. And if we could understand all those college
Yeah,
and
the
the high school,
relationship.
because we've really expanded that a lot in the last, decade or so. And is that having the impact that we had hoped? And
The answer
that's
is
not a
yes
question
again.
for tonight.
No, I don't
Just
have
a
that data.
wondering.
However, I'm going to capture that idea, and I too have those questions as well. We have an immense college and the high school program.
Yes.
Really, again, by comparison to any other district and the sheer numbers in which students are earning credits, it is difficult to collect all the places, but I too wonder if since the RDC does collect both, they have a dual enrollment dashboard and they also have a post-secondary dashboard. I wonder at the level at which they are at, they may have the privilege of being able to do some aggregated data. So I plan to
Well,
ask some
the
questions.
huge benefit, obviously, is saving tuition costs for students.
Absolutely.
And, being able to complete earlier. So that's huge, so it's already a win. I was
Yes.
just more curious if it got more students thinking about college because they're able to complete those higher level classes.
Yeah, or if they went to those colleges as a result of,
Yeah.
of those college and the high school credits. They're great questions. I
Thank
don't
you.
have the answers,
I know.
though.
I just
Okay.
wondering to think
Yes.
about as the data presents itself one day.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Director Herman?
Yeah, that, actually, the data was what spot on this. The college and the high school it's pretty amazing that the students as freshmen, they are enrolling.
Yes,
And they are starting their post-secondary. They're going to be getting a transcript, and I will be curious. This is the second year, correct? Of college and high school being free.
Yes,
And
that's
so
right.
there is the little bit of downside that I've heard from teachers is, of course, enrolling. If a student is not quite sure how well they're going to do, they may not want it on the transcript. But otherwise, go ahead and enroll, and they're going to be earning those credits.
Yes.
So it's going to be really interesting on that. Regarding the data, so this is what was also interesting to me, is thinking about Universal High School and Beyond Plan program that the state is going to be working on. And the advisory council is at work this year on that. Are there plans to incorporate post-secondary education to get more of a P16 view of our students and track them? Because that seems like a natural next step in incorporating that data and making some of these better informed decisions on what's working, what's not. Do we have any, the ESD, I'm assuming that we have some people contacts and information is getting back on what those conversations are having this year. Have you heard of
There are
anything?
two of us, that would be myself and Sarah Pewitt, who's the high school and beyond facilitator, who are on those advisory committees. We've been
Fantastic.
regularly going. They will have two particular events, one in October and one in March, that are all-day sessions to do some of the planning that goes along with that. So
fantastic.
we inserted ourselves or volunteered, whatever that might mean, because it's important to us. It's a program we can be really proud of, and of course, we would like to have a role in the planning alongside others for the state, and also the vision for what it is that would result in having a statewide system.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Thank you for doing that and using your time. And then also, I just want to thank you for a couple of the things that I came in with. There was a piece on NPR that FAFSA will once again be having some issues this year. So thank you for continuing to really support our students and families in filling that out. And then also regarding Gear Up and Limitless Learning. So we're on the last year of the Gear Up grant. Limitless Learning is continuing, and it sounds like, and thank you again for operationalizing as much of that and evaluating what's worth us continuing to do to keep up these great results.
Yeah.
So thank you for all
Keep
you're
the
doing
learning
there.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Willard.
I'm still up.
Oh.
It's a double header tonight.
Oh, sorry, I had Dr. Bowden on that.
I can have her come up. Would you
No,
like to
no,
come
no.
up? Did you want to come share with me?
Oh, no, I read it wrong. My fault. Okay, so this brings us up now to section 13.0, information discussion, with the first one being the Rotary Club of Everett Next Generation Project, which is a spotlight presentation. Dr. Willard.
Thank you, I'm back up. So tonight, I'm really glad to share with you the spotlight presentation on the Next Generation Project. You'll see in the consent agenda that we received a monetary gift from the Rotary Club of Everett, and so this will just give a little background on what this means. So this too is focused on reducing gaps and ensuring students are prepared for college and career. So the Next Generation Project has been a signature project of the Rotary Club of Everett. It was launched in 2012-13 as a result of a committee that the Rotary had put together to celebrate their centennial. And so this is a project that's been long-lasting. Even through the pandemic, the original committee even had 3 board members, former board members, that were part of it. So you can see where there was already a network already involved in the planning for this. So the idea behind the Next Generation Project is that it would be aligned with the club's strategic plan, and it would provide significant impact activities, investments which would improve opportunities for youth in the Everett community. And obviously, being in the school district, we have direct access to the youth in the community. And so they aspired to have the project really be hands-on, cutting edge, braggable is what they said, meet basic needs, multi-year. Well, that has happened. This is from their original presentation. I actually had it. I was doing this alongside, fueled by passion and create community visibility. And so with that, they really have left a legacy. This is a project that is aligned with ensuring that students are college and career ready. And as a result of that, they saw a natural weaving with our AVID program. And AVID is a national, even international program. It stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination. We've had AVID in our district since 2006, and it's grown to different schools. The Next Generation project is set up to help support students who are in AVID to have those college visits and to have those other experiences that allow them to think about their post-secondary plans. I haven't said that word enough tonight. So, and they're focused on the city of Everett. So there are 6 schools, 3 high schools, and 3 middle schools that are the focus of the Next Generation project. And their focus is really to make sure that those opportunities are available for AVID students, but all students. And they chose AVID because AVID students are typically the students in the middle. They're underrepresented, typically in higher ed. They're in the academic middle, so we talk about that 3.0 GPA, but they may be sitting in the mid-2s or just at 3.0 and maybe not recognized for some of the things that they may know and just need the support to really be able to see their plans for the future. So AVID has become the liaison group that has worked with the Next Generation Project and with the Rotary. So some of the project goals and resources are available. The monetary gift will help support college and career field trips. So this is to give students experiences so they can be on those campuses. It also includes job site visits too, if the AVID classes would like to do that. It allows for career speakers and mentors. So Rotarians come into classrooms, they talk about their jobs, they talk about how they arrived there. Many of them are trying to make sure that students in those classes may be able to be connected with outside community partners. Some of them have become mentors for students in the classes, and they celebrate students in our AVID classes regularly. They also will come in and help with those mock interviews and the financial aid process many times. And not this past year, but in prior years, you would have seen them help us with FAFSA events as well. They also provide classroom grants for students, or the classes, the AVID elective classes that we have in those six schools, so that they can have more pieces that they may need for their AVID classes. So it's been a great companion piece to our AVID program and has really helped a lot of students think about their post-secondary plans. So the funding for this coming year is $8,000. The 2 comprehensive high schools, Cascade and Everett, will each receive $2,000 each, $1,000 for Sequoia, and for each of the middle schools listed here. And most of that funding will actually go towards field trips specific to the students in those classes. From last year, the highlights are really around the college visits. All of those 6 schools went to the University of Washington Seattle campus and had a full day visit. But they also were able to use some of the monies for some of these other field trips, like Central Washington or Eastern and Gonzaga, and to Washington State University, the Pullman campus. They were able to combine it with other funds and be able to travel there, so they had firsthand experience there. So with that, thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments? Yeah, it's just such a great partnership we have with the Rotary of Everett.
Thank you.
So now you can step down. So now 13.02, the start of school update. Dr. Scott.
Thank you very much. There are a lot of PowerPoints here to toggle through, so let me get the right one. Well, thank you very much, Board President Mitchell, Dr. Saltzman, Board of Directors, student representatives. We really are excited to share with you our annual start of school update for many of the reasons that you all shared earlier. And that is we're excited about the smooth and successful opening of school, and we hope to, tonight it's our intention to illustrate the why behind the smooth and successful opening. You can see here we have a comprehensive launch list, and I've got a very large team behind me to illustrate those instructional and operational investments that really contributed to that smooth start of school. And so we're really pleased to be able to, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to describe that. One of the things that we want to do differently tonight is to elevate other voices, so stakeholder voices, and the impact that these preparations have had on them actually in the field. So you're going to see representatives from various groups here in their own words, their perceptions of the impact of these preparations. So we're really excited to bring those voices in the room. They're going to be here virtually on these little video vignettes. So we think that they will help bring in living color some of the work that was done in preparation for the start of school. So we're excited for that. We also want to intentionally call out the strategic priorities, and we are proud that in all of these areas, all 6 of the strategic priorities are aligned. So we are also in the top right column of each of these slides, you'll see that alignment represented. So without further ado, we're going to start with highlighting leadership development first. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. You will hear tonight throughout this presentation about many aspects of an exceptionally smooth, focused, and student-centered start to the 24-25 school year. The only way this could happen is through intentional and coordinated planning. And the first step in that intentional planning is to make sure that our leaders, both school-based leaders and centrally based leaders, are well-equipped and working together systemically on behalf of our students. So beginning in the spring and moving through the summer and continuing into this school year, we've held professional learning experiences for leaders to collaborate, to learn, and to plan for the smooth launch, to boldly go into this school year with courage, confidence, and coherence. We held a new administrator orientation on July 1st for administrators new to their positions and those new to Everett Public Schools. We engaged in a robust Summer Leadership Institute in early August for all members of the administrators and supervisors team. And I know some of you were able to attend and see portions of that. And we also held a school improvement planning series for school leaders, principals and assistant principals. And that began in June, right after school was out. It continued in August, and following that through line in meetings by level and by region throughout this school year. We intentionally aligned these learning and collaborative sessions to the strategic plan, specifically focusing on these strategic priorities. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into each of these 3 leadership development components, and then you're going to hear from one of our new administrators about the value of the professional learning in her words. So we've welcomed 16 school-based administrators, either new to Everett Public Schools or those who were promoted from teacher to administrator or from assistant principal to principal. These were not new positions necessarily, but instead positions when people retired or for some other reason left. We've also welcomed administrators and supervisors who are centrally based, also a healthy mix of those promoted from within and those new to Everett Public Schools. We are proud of our work to successfully recruit, develop, and retain high-quality administrators from diverse backgrounds and experiences. On July 1st, we held a new administrator orientation that included differentiated support, including human resources systems, technology, support for those new to the principal position, for example, never having supervised and evaluated an assistant principal before. And we also did a very deep dive into our strategic plan with connections to school improvement planning. There were many opportunities to connect and collaborate, as well as to learn about culture, climate, systems, and the instructional focus in Everett Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. Leadership is absolutely crucial. It matters. And having routines to continually develop our leaders is it's essential. It's an ongoing investment to develop our leaders, and the Summer Leadership Institute is a cornerstone of that work. So as Dr. Woods described, we invested in our new leaders in that orientation session. The Leadership Institute brings everybody together for 3 days to develop ourselves, learning from each other, aligned to the priorities of the strategic plan, that ongoing investment. It is a professional grade series of learning opportunities for everyone that we are all proud of. Something that's different this last August was that all of the facilitation was provided by Everett leaders. And this approach was well received with lots of positive feedback, and it demonstrates that we have the capacity within our system to put on a powerful session like we did. And the feedback was very positive. It felt connected, relevant, engaging. We used Brene Brown as an anchor to develop ourselves as leaders individually, and we used some other frameworks to develop our systems leadership with our teams. It was community building, it was connecting and welcoming people into their new roles and welcoming new leaders. It was student-centered, focused, and it was also a lot of fun. It was very engaging, and it went very quickly. Additionally, we provided a series of professional learning opportunities around school improvement. This is for our principals and APs primarily. This began in the spring, and we had a full day, June 26th, that preliminary data was already coming in. We were already looking at our school improvement priorities and refreshing that. We had calendars out where we were putting some initial professional learning things in mind, getting the year ahead. This was all in June, just that first full week when students were out. We had additional doses for this time during Summer Leadership Institute. We had another full day dose in August 14th. This is a planned series that culminated to equip all of our school leaders to have a clear and shared focus, equipping them to engage their school leadership teams and then their staff. So we're all prepared for that strong launch. So now we have the opportunity to hear from one of our new leaders. This is the new principal at Woodside Elementary, Danielle DeYoung, to hear in her words the impact of this investment of leaders.
I'm Danielle DeYoung, principal at Woodside Elementary. Moving to a new school district can feel very daunting. There is a lot to learn, but the new administrator orientation gave me the opportunity to align myself with priority student outcomes in a smaller group setting. We were able to hear directly from Executive Cabinet and dive into the strategic plan and core values. The Leadership Institute provided a deeper opportunity to collaborate, intentionally plan, and prepare for the successful launch of the new school year. Alongside Executive Cabinet, we had the clarity and coherence to see the system's alignment from a district level to a school level, all the way down to individual students.
All right, that was Principal Danielle DeYoung. And I will introduce Mimi Brown.
Thank you. Continuing with the strategic theme of human capital, recruitment, development, and retention, this August we had our second annual EPS Learns Week that embeds 4 key professional learning experiences. First, a diversity, equity, and inclusion focus day. Next, certificated new hire orientation. Next, choice offerings for the entire staff. And last, new this year, was a dual language focus day. Our DEI Focus Day launched the week with a celebration of our community through dance. Students in the ballet folklore shared dances from Mexico, and an elementary student shared with us a dance from India. You will see through the next few slides that sharing our identities and learning with our community is a powerful way to begin another school year. Our certificated new hire orientation welcomed 91 new teachers and specialists with our traditional red carpet, sessions to prepare them for the first days, weeks, and months of school, as well as some choice offerings. New hires had a fast pass that allowed them to access to any course, just like Disneyland lines. We have approximately 25 more certificated new hires that joined our district after the August week. They will attend our fall new hire orientation. This is one of our new hires, Heidi Smith. She is a new teacher to Everett, but not new to the profession. So we'll hear her reflection.
Hi, my name is Heidi Smith, and I work here at Emerson Elementary School. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't exactly thrilled to attend a new hire. This is my 5th one in my 26-year career, but I was so pleasantly surprised that I actually called my friends at other districts to tell them, hey, if you're doing a new orientation, here's what Everett did that made it so awesome. I think that the first thing that I think about is the leadership, the leaders. They were so welcoming and kind from the second I walked in the door. I just really felt like I was part of that Everett family from day one. And I really appreciated that. During the sessions, you could tell that they were just so organized and well prepared and well spoken. The sessions were really fantastic. One thing that I really liked was we got this fast pass, and that allowed us to choose which sessions that we went to. And for me, as a seasoned teacher, that was fantastic because it was individualized to our needs. But honestly, even the general sessions were great. Like, I didn't know how to use a panel. I didn't know what ruler was. So I really felt that that was valuable. I have told everybody that I've met that Everett is a well-oiled machine. This is the first time in a number of years that I feel like I've joined a district that has a truly guaranteed and viable curriculum. As a person who, in the past, I have worked at the district office as an instructional coach. So I was the one that was creating the scales and the assessments and disseminating that information to teachers. So when I was digging around during orientation on all the resources that are here in Everett, I was so relieved. What awesome thing to come into a district and have that done for me. So I just really am thankful that Everett has this common vision that's research-based, which is also really important to me. And that has carried over here into Emerson Elementary School. My principals are just the epitome of positive leadership. My team, everyone's really hardworking, and we truly care about kids. And I am just so thrilled to be here at Everett School District.
We're really glad that Heidi experienced a sense of belonging and preparedness. Those are our 2 main goals for that week of orientation. Our DEI Focus Day was well attended with over 100 participants taking time out of their summer to learn alongside their colleagues. Following that, 100 choice courses were offered with 843 enrollments. New this year was our Dual Language Focus Day. Our dual language staff at Emerson Elementary and additional EPS staff preparing for the dual language expansion attended. Participants really appreciated collaborating with 63 out-of-district guests. We were honored to have 14 Tulalip and Lachute teachers join us for lunch and share a traditional blessing. Here is Nadia Carrero Ramirez sharing how EPS Learns made a difference for her and her team.
My name is Nadia Areli Carriedo, and I'm teaching this school year 1st grade at Emerson Elementary in the dual language program. Oh, it's making a difference in us as a community, as a teachers, having a community from other districts to join us, created a network that we can have extra support, and then we connect, we get more resources for our students, for our families, and for our personal growth too as a teachers. And it was a great experience, and also being there with my team. We are growing, and I see the difference that they created, the impact that has on us as a group at Emerson. Gracias por la oportunidad. Ha sido una experiencia muy satisfactoria, de gran impacto, no solo para nosotros los maestros, pero definitivamente para los estudiantes que están en el programa bilingüe.
Thank you.
So a smooth start to the school year needs to have smooth curriculum support and deployment. So each year we have some teachers who may have changed to a different grade level, or maybe they're changing subject areas or picking up a different course. So our teams mobilize to actually deliver either newly purchased materials, textbooks, consumable materials, but we also spend a lot of time actually shifting materials from buildings to building. It's a cost-effective way. When we have courses that shrink or grow in different buildings, it's a cost-effective way rather than just buying new stuff. We shift those materials and transfer those so that students have those materials on the first day. You can see on the picture here, we also geared up and got our Science Resource Center. They worked overtime to get our science kits ready for our students. Fun fact, this is the last year perhaps for some of those kids as we're engaging in a P5 science adoption this year. So we're excited to see what new adventures they'll bring, but we got those palletized and deployed out. In addition to the new teacher support that was mentioned before, we also conducted additional professional learning supports, including things around Washington State history project-based teaching with EduCurious. It's a new curricula that we're implementing at the middle school level. And also focusing on some co-teaching practices with our new hire orientation and helping to facilitate that model. We also engaged in a lot of summer learning to help prepare for the year. So teachers who wanted a refresher on anything from a CTE course to science of reading, world language with Avant trainings, and as well as the sheltered instruction observation protocol, which is some strategies that we utilize with multilingual learners. So you may have seen one of these fancy little devices, the ILA or the ILA translation device. We used one at summer or at graduation, and it is an amazing tool that allows listeners to be able to hear in real time translations. We actually have ILA devices in all 18 of our elementary schools and many of our middle and high schools, utilizing some categorical funding. Now, you've probably seen this device used in large group settings, maybe for large meetings or, like I said, in graduation. But here is Darren Larima, who is the very proud principal of Jackson Elementary. He's going to share in his words how they've used the ILA device to help their school's year start off well.
I'm Darren Larima. I'm the principal at Jackson Elementary. And we really enjoyed having the ILA devices at our school. We have one in our office. And two quick examples come to mind. We had a family registering their children for school, and the family was Spanish speaking only. And so we were able to use this to communicate, get some information shared with the parents about what they needed to answer their questions. I could introduce myself to the parents and to the students, and that was a really positive experience. That facilitation through the ILA device made the registration process for them much smoother. They could have their questions answered right there in person. And then last week, we had a little accident on the playground with one of our students, and the parents, again, didn't have English, but the health room assistant was able to have a really good conversation with them, do some kind of like problem solving, sharing her observations, and the parent was able to make a great decision based on what she heard to take her child to the doctor for a little follow-up check. So those are two really great experiences we've had so far. We're able to communicate directly with our parents using the device.
All right, jumping back to human capital. On Monday, August 19th, we hosted our third annual classified job fair. Each year, we learn how to improve the process and the candidate experience based on the prior year's feedback from administrators, staff, and candidates. Each year, we see more candidates in attendance, more jobs offered. To highlight the candidate experience, Wendy Mendoza, who's an Everett graduate, is a paraeducator at Monroe Elementary. She will share in her words her experience at the job fair.
Hi, I'm Wendy Mendoza. I work at Monroe Elementary School, and I was hired at the job fair, which was an excellent experience. I did have a prior interview, but being hired at the job fair made everything really fast, really simple, and it was honestly very stress-free, which I really enjoyed. I plan to become a teacher for the school district. Right now I'm just being a paraeducator to get some experience and just make sure that I know what I'm doing.
Well, looking forward to theme D, consistency and accountability for key processes affecting student success, balanced with differentiated and innovation. Nothing screams that more than the operations departments in Everett Public Schools. So I know that our student representatives here on the last day of school has to be one of the most exhilarating feelings that you have, and it is for the capital projects team too, because we get to go build stuff. So this particular summer, we've been really busy preparing and developing new facilities for our district and for our students. You can see there's many up there. And thematically, what we have been working on is what our capital levy in 2022 package that was approved by our voters is fulfilling. So on this list, you can see safety and security upgrades, You can see the maintenance, long-term maintenance of our facilities. You can see replacing key elements to the student's day, like bleachers and flooring at our schools. And finally, the picture that you see on the right is a picture of the new STEM CTE lab at Jackson High School, in addition to the first year of phase of its HVAC replacement and a major system within the school. But it's not just capital levy dollars that we utilize. When we have capital projects that are old and aging buildings that we replace or renew, we are eligible for SCAP funds, School Construction Assistance Program funds, and we utilize those and put them right back into our facilities to maintain the best environments we can possibly do for our students' experience each and every day. And some of those projects you can see that were used with SCAP funding here are replacing some of the aging systems that we have. We also have used them to maintain the water drain off that we have, like retention ponds that we have in our schools. But this particular picture is highlighting Silver Lake Elementary School. This is the new baseball field that is on the back half of the property. And the perspective of the picture was taken intentionally because what it shows you is the access we created for our students who have physical disabilities who couldn't access the field before. This creates a safe way for them to participate and join their peers in play outdoor on the sports fields. And the next, our maintenance department. While the capital projects team gets to build new things and maintain large projects, the maintenance is what actually gets the job done day in and day out. And since the last day of school to the first day of school this year, 1,446 work orders were completed. That's a lot, which means we have high needs in our district, but our teams are committed to making it happen and taking care of our facilities. You'll also see that we are replacing stage lighting at Jackson High School for drama and performing arts performances. You'll also notice the really great picture here at North Middle School of a freshly redone parking lot restriping. We had 9 of those at our elementaries and 5 secondary schools who got restriped this year. And there's nothing nicer than a fresh parking lot, in my opinion. Okay, I don't see the same level of enjoyment in the team. That's okay. It's okay, I'll bring it for you. So next we have the organics law. You may have heard that in the state of Washington, there is a new law that requires entities like Everett Public Schools and other school districts across the state to divert organic material away from landfills. Of course, we want to have a healthy, clean earth. We also want clean water systems. And the more we can divert away from landfills, the better off I think we all are for the future. So in partnership with our maintenance department and communications department, we prepared to launch composting in our schools this fall. And specifically, we started that process in our elementary schools, and we will be launching composting in the secondary schools beginning in January when we return from break. To aid our elementary students in what it means to appropriately compost, we have put together a video for our students to make sure that they are doing it safe, doing it right, and helping their environment.
Hi there, awesome recyclers. Today, we're going to talk about recycling and composting at school. Did you know we have a new law requiring us to compost our food waste? It's super important for the environment because your food waste will be composted and turned into nutrient-rich soil that can be used to grow more food, closing the loop. We need your help to do it right. After you've finished eating what you can, it's time to look at what needs to be thrown away. It can get really crowded at the waste station, so before you get up, do a quick sort of the items left in your lunch so you're ready when it's your turn to arrive at the waste station. If you have metal silverware on your tray, set it aside now so that it's easy to put into the soaking bin later. Remember, metal silverware can be washed and used again. It is never thrown out. Don't throw out food that can be saved for somebody else. If you have untouched, wrapped food, such as crackers and yogurt, or unpeeled oranges, unbitten apples, or unpeeled bananas, you can save them for later or place them in the share table bin. Group all your share table items together, recyclables together, food waste together, and garbage together. Then head to the waste station when you are told. Your first stop is the share table bin. Place only the items that are allowed inside the bin. Next, liquids like juice and milk get emptied into the liquids bucket. Be careful not to splash yourself or your friends. Recyclables like milk and juice cartons, clean plastic containers, plastic bottles, cans, and clean paper go into the blue recycling container. Compostables are things like food and dirty napkins. They go in the green food waste container. You can even put meat, cheese, bones, and untreated wood like corn dog sticks right in there. Garbage like plastic wrappers, juice pouches, straws, and plastic forks and spoons go into the garbage container. Then stack your tray. Your school may have the garbage before the compost at the waste station. That's okay. Sometimes, items accidentally get into the wrong container. If that happens, just use the tongs to pull it out and put it in the correct container. Don't worry too much if it gets a little dirty. Just do your best. And if your school has a green team, you may have help sorting your items until you get down this new process. If you're feeling comfortable with it and see somebody struggling, it's okay to help them until they learn. There are lots of simple things you can do to help our school reduce waste. Take only the foods that you think you will eat. And remember to share safe foods in the share bin so that other students have a chance to eat food as well. Reduce, reuse, recycle, and compost. Thank you for helping make our school a cleaner, greener place. Keep up the great work, Super Recyclers.
Makes you want to go to school lunch just to try it out, you know? That would be really awesome. With that, just to bring it up, the operations departments, we have our transportation department. And in particular, our transportation department has been engaged in a lot of innovative and sustainable practice to reduce our carbon footprint, to actually conserve and build upon clean energy sources. And you can see several of those up there. We ended up purchasing 25 propane buses to help reduce the use of diesel fuel, which would bring carbon emissions down for district transportation. We also have been purchasing and installing electric buses and their charging stations. We're about ready to, here in the district, put all 11 at the North Bus facility to install them, the switch gear. I'm learning fancy terms, but basically the equipment that you need to charge them with is coming in here and is being installed here shortly. We also, with those propane buses, had a bonus of safety, student safety. And moving forward, as we have the opportunity to replace and work with our Durham Transportation Services to replace buses, a commitment to replacing them with seat belts, lap shoulder belts in our buses moving forward, in addition to the work that we're doing to find clean and sustainable energy transportation sources. So with that, I share with you a video from our transportation department as narrated by our Director of Transportation, Nancy Brown, on these new safe lap shoulder belt buses.
Good morning. Today I'm going to introduce you to our new propane buses. These buses are operated on propane fuel instead of diesel as we move forward to reducing our carbon footprint.
These propane buses are also fully equipped with lap shoulder belts. We are excited to roll out this important safety feature as we strive to provide a safe ride for all. Now we will demonstrate how to load, take your seat, and attach your seatbelt.
Good morning. Good morning. Please have a seat. Now, as required by law and for your safety, please wear your seatbelt while riding the bus.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody buckle? Yep. All right, here we go.
Thank you for your time and attention today. I wish everyone a great start of school. And remember, for your safety, please buckle up.
I don't have a video, but I'm going to continue on with consistency and accountability around an enrollment update and the start of your process around enrollment. The district monitors its enrollment continuously throughout the year, but I really want to highlight the start of the year process. The district actually reviews its enrollment for the first 8 days of school, really for 2 reasons. One, to align our staffing and our teachers to where our students are arriving at each of our schools. And 2, to project out our overall October 1st headcount, which aligns with what we budgeted for the 24-25 fiscal year. I want to highlight that we do, as of October 1st, our preliminary enrollment is actually 80 over our budgeted enrollment overall. This is great news. We went with the medium enrollment projections from our consultant, and we are exceeding that projection, and I'm very excited about that as well. What this also means is that we are about 130 students more than last year as well. So just slightly over that. So we're seeing that continued growth. And it's a great news not only for fiscal stability, but also just within the districts of aligning our staffing and prioritizing that. As part of that first 8-day process, what we're looking at really is how our staffing is and where our teachers are at and where are those students coming in, and to ensure that we have the right amount of students in each of our classrooms, and ensuring that we don't have too big of classrooms as well or too small of classrooms. And one of the great things about this process is that we really try to minimize teacher moves overall. And one of the most exceptional things we had this year specifically is that we had no teacher moves outside of their buildings. So no teacher was moved to a different building this year. And that's pretty exceptional. We minimize that year over year, but that's just a beyond exceptional year. We also monitor enrollment for our revenue projections throughout the year, and as we go through providing you fiscal updates to the board and this community, we will illustrate what that means for our revenue and what that looks like for future years as well, as we develop our overall fiscal outlook. Again, I just want to say that this is a great news overall with our enrollment, and we'll continue to provide you updates of any changes around that going forward.
Good evening. In the Learning and Information Technology Services Department, we support the strategic plan really focused on the making sure we provide equitable access for resources for student learning. And that really, like Larry mentioned with his team, that starts the day the summer starts. So as students leave, we start our work getting ready. And we make a priority for all those work tickets that come in over the summer that focused on the classroom and focused on making sure teachers are ready with having what they need for day one. So for example, from July to September, our team, we closed about 5,000 work order tickets. Many of those were from teachers and buildings and principals about getting their buildings ready and their classrooms ready. That really starts by making sure the students have the tools they need. So we replaced over the summer all of the devices that are out of warranty. This year that was at North and Gateway, so those computers are replaced. But we touch every single computer. All 9,000 elementary Chromebooks are cleaned physically and digitally. We also do the same. We re-image all of the high school devices. This is the last year for Everett High School and Sequoia's devices, but we need to re-image all 5,000 of those. So that takes the summer, so we need from day one to start that work. Want them to make sure they're cleaned and ready to go. Also, we want to make sure the teacher stations are ready. So we spend time this summer going to every teacher's classroom and making sure those panels are checked to make sure they're working correctly, that they're physically cleaned, and updates are provided. And that's a primary way teachers can engage with their classrooms, but also project. So it's important that that's ready for day one. And that also includes moving those panels and setting up those teacher stations for new classrooms, new portables from around the district. We also want to make sure equitable access means the hotspots. And so we want those to be available for students to check out for day one. This summer, our project was to upgrade all of the student hotspots to 5G from the 4G is what they had access to last year. We wanted those to be ready for day one. We currently have about 600 lines that are checked out to students, but we have the availability to add more as more requests come in. So assuring that we have equitable access for those that don't have internet at home. Our summer work also this summer included getting ready for the new student information system. So a lot of data migration behind the scenes, work took place getting things moved from eSchool into Synergy as we move forward in that project. And I'll have an update for the board at an upcoming presentation with more detail about that work. And so we did professional development. So having all these tools without knowing how to use them, that's a key part of our plan. And so we had summer tech camps and different learning opportunities for our staff throughout the summer. And we wanted to make sure all the digital tools were ready for day one. So tools such as Canvas, iReady, some of those key pieces, we wanted to make sure the digital tools were ready for staff, and they had the training provided over the summer if they should need that. One of the things as we onboard our new staff is we want to hear from them about their experience, not only learning the new tools, but making sure that those are available. So one of the new teachers that you'll hear from is one of our new staff members from Everett High School about her experience with the tools and the learning about those and the use of those in the classroom.
All right, hi, my name's Ellis Faschholz. I'm a first year teacher at Everett High School, and I'm teaching physics and anatomy and physiology. And I'd say my most used tool so far this year has been Canvas, which is hugely helpful for one of the bigger issues with our student body is absenteeism, missing class. It can be a big obstacle. So just having a place where I can have resources and have my PowerPoints and lessons and assignments so students can catch up quickly and to know where all of those resources are is a really helpful tool for keeping them on track, not falling behind. And I'm really excited to get to use some tools like Physics Classroom for some of my labs. We have some really cool technology like sensor, other exploratory technologies for them to do more hands-on learning in labs and self-directed learning, as well as with gizmos is the other one I'm really excited to use because then they can do extensions of their learning and really get to try things on their own. And experience the learning rather than just learning from a lecture.
So she mentioned a couple of digital tools in that presentation, in her sharing, in her words. I want to mention that we currently support over 300 digital tools that we make sure are available for teachers on day one. But she highlighted some key ones for her job.
All right, let's talk about our new communications platform. So this summer, the district implemented Parent Square, which you all were excited to talk about tonight, a few of you. This is a unified communications platform for streamlining communications between the district, schools, teachers, families. Our goal is to enhance engagement for our families because when families are engaged, students are more successful. They are more engaged. The mobile app and text messaging functions of Parent Square, this tool, also make it easier for families to receive and engage with important information on the go, which all of our families are on the go, our students are on the go. And this ensures we can quickly reach them in times of when information is important to be received. Parent Square also provides accessible communication for our multilingual families by offering automatic translation in over 100 languages. And this is crucial for ensuring all our families feel not only informed, but included. By adopting Parent Square, we are also providing more efficient and inclusive communication tool to better serve and engage with our community. So now, don't take it just from me. Let's hear from the words from a principal and a parent.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Kelly, and I'm the principal at Lowell Elementary. I am loving Parent Square so far. One of the things that I have seen come out of it in terms of family engagement is a huge number of hits on my family newsletter, my monthly family newsletter. On the September newsletter, it has over 2,000 hits, and in comparison, last June, I had about 400. And I would attribute that to the fact that everything we send out through Parent Square, though it can go out as a call, a text, or a post, like an email, the fact that everything goes out as a text notification, I think is really catching our families who aren't email users. As a result, I think we had an unprecedented turnout for meet and greet the day before school started. Our teachers were so impressed by the high percentage of their families that they saw. Another thing I really like about it is that I can see my teachers' communications to their families. And so it gives me a sense of what's going on in classroom communities and how that's being shared with families. So it's been a huge win across the board so far, and I'm excited to keep using it.
Hi, my name is Nicole McKnight, and I have 4 children in the Everett School District at 3 different schools. I have 2 at Jackson High, 1 at Heatherwood Middle School, and 1 at Mill Creek. And the thing that I love most about Parent Square is that I'm able to keep track of the schools and what is pushed out for each student. And that makes it so much easier as a parent to keep track of everything.
All right, so this just in, the numbers you're about to see on your screen will be a little different than what's in board docs right now, but that's because we have exciting data that I wanted to share. So right now, we have 49.4% of our parents registered with Parent Square, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. But when we think about it in a different way, some of us might have one parent who's very engaged in the school part of life, another parent may be finances, and you divide and conquer. When we look at our student body, all of our students, 72.2% of our students have at least one parent or guardian registered with Parent Square. That means they are engaged. They know what's going on. And then of all the parents who are registered, we have 85% have downloaded the app. So that shows you how mobile our families are and how much they're using this tool. So what about that 28%, Roman, don't do the math on me, but I'm just kind of doing a little bit of math. But that 28% that you're gonna ask about who aren't maybe there yet, a little bit less than that, they are still receiving the information, and that's so important to know. So even if they haven't registered with Parent Square, they're still getting that information through our home access center. So they're still getting that text, they're still getting an email, they're still getting a voicemail, but it's just not as user-friendly, it's not as clean, they don't get to choose how they're notified, and they don't get the function where you can actually message your teacher, you can initiate the communication through Parent Square when you have the application. So there are benefits, but they are still receiving the information, which is still very important, especially for emergency communications. So that's important to know. So as part of our strategic plans, community engagement initiatives, we're focused on developing culturally responsive outreach that meets families where they are. The adoption of Parent Square aligns with this goal by embedding equity and accessibility in our communications. With this platform, we can engage all families, including those with diverse linguistic and cultural needs, ensuring that every student and parent feels connected, engaged, and informed. And this is a critical step toward building stronger, more inclusive school communities. Thank you.
So on behalf of the team, thanks for giving us the opportunity to share the preparatory investments that we've made both instructionally and operationally tonight in all the voices that we were. Thank you to them as well for the time that they took to bring their perspectives into the room. And we thank you for your time this evening.
Well, thank you so much, and to everyone. And I do think those, it's always nice to have the staff come, but I know that's a big burden on them and their families. So I think the videos were a nice replacement. Any questions or comments? Because there was a lot of information. Director Herman?
I actually, at the end, I felt like I should be clapping. I just, well done on so many fronts. That was a lot of really good information. So I just can't say how proud I am of the district for all the work that has gone in, and it paid off. I know that this upcoming summer, we're going to have a little bit of less time to do some of this work. So as I'm seeing the numbers for the work orders and the tech orders, and I'm just thinking ahead, and it was almost going to start as a question of, will you be able to do it? Will we be able to do it? And of course, the answer is it's more of a statement of thank you, because I know you all are going to not only do it, but knock it out of the park again. So thank you. This was a powerful presentation. And I really like the videos too. That was a great.
Questions or comments?
Can we applaud? Can we applaud? I mean, like, why can't we applaud?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so at this point in time, because it has been quite a bit for us, we're going to take a 10-minute break or an 11-minute break, and we'll come back at the 6:40. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right on time. I hoped we were faster, but. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue with section 13.0, information discussion, with section 13.03, instructional materials overview and adoption schedule. Dr. Bowden.
Thank you. Good evening, President Mitchell, Board of Directors, Dr. Salzman. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to present the instructional materials overview and the updated adoption forecast. So this evening we'll share both current and future needs for instructional materials, taking into account some key factors that really influence our decisions. We'll develop a shared understanding of the financial impacts associated with the long-term adoption plans. We'll share out some next steps as we move forward into our future. So throughout this evening's presentation, you're going to hear words like coordination, alignment, calibration, a lot. It's very important vocabulary to us, and it's very intentional because when we have standards aligned curriculum, it helps us to ensure educational equity within and across our system. So to achieve that curriculum coordination in Everett Public Schools, it requires our collaborative teams to examine how existing content practices may result in disparate outcomes for different populations and students. And that may be students of color, students who are experiencing poverty within our system, students receiving special education services, our multilingual learners, students who are also in mobile populations. And when we commit to a guaranteed and viable curriculum across all schools, it really helps to ensure all students have access to high quality instruction. So alignment across schools and all levels allows staff to assist students who need additional time and support, knowing that that common scope and sequence is existing, and it allows staff to provide for common pre-teaching strategies and use foundational knowledge that they've had exposure to build that foundation. If students move from building to building within our system, there's confidence that students will be close to where they were in their previous school setting, and it can also help mitigate the gaps, or in some cases overlaps, when students transition. Using that same materials in the scope and sequence really help to make sure that we're catching students where they are, ensuring that they have an equitable experience if they're moving from building to building, which can be really challenging, whether you're a little or whether you're a high school, or shifting buildings can be hard. At least you have that confidence in knowing that you'll have consistent curricula and you'll be able to join your class where they're at. Coordinated curriculum also allows our teaching staff to collaborate within each grade level, and it also provides that stable vertical scope and sequence from year to year. Now, curriculum is never about lockstep. So to be clear, we have teaching staff here. There's always room for our amazing teaching staff and instructional staff to use their creativity to enhance and adjust those lessons. But when we have coordinated and aligned curriculum, we can ensure that all students have access to the instruction and support that they need to succeed in our schools. We're able to focus our efforts on achieving all 6 of our priority student outcomes, and it's a constant reminder to our entire system each and every day that we are about serving every student every single day. So why forecast? Why don't we just have a static plan and just stick with it? There are multiple factors that we review annually to see if the forecast may need some modifications or some adjustments. And some of those considerations are things like you'll see here. So we'll explore the standards revision a little deeper in just a few minutes, but if there's a shift in the standards, we want to ensure that our students are getting the knowledge and skills to be successful in their career here in Everett Public Schools, but also the post-secondary experience. So we make some adjustments to that. There are also often shifts in content. So things like current events happen. You have to update history books, or introduction of new content areas to meet the needs of industry. So things like computer science, data science, digital media literacy. 30 years ago, we didn't even think about some of those different pieces. And those are things that are critical to our industry right now. Changes with publishers happen. So occasionally we have a publisher who says we're going to discontinue materials, or they make so many changes to a revised version of a textbook that it's no longer, the materials that we have are no longer relevant to the digital supports. So we have to make some changes there. And those changes and adaptations with our digital resources are really important as well. So if we need to be more conservative with our budgets as well, we've experienced this firsthand, we may need to adjust the forecast just to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we're doing what we need to do when we need to do it. So we also consider planning for implementation of support to the instructional staff. When there are large adoptions that impact many grade levels or content areas, we may need to adjust the implementation rollout into phases just to mitigate cost and or impact on the system. We make those adjustments so that we don't overwhelm our teaching practitioners. We can't have them learning 2 or 3 new curricula each year. That's a significant amount of drain on teachers, and we want to make sure that we're planning really intentionally where we can. So as I mentioned before, the standards review definitely can cause an issue when we are talking about adjusting that forecast. And in this case situation, Washington state learning standards were adopted for English language arts and math were adopted in 2011. And science was actually adopted, the NGSS, in 2013. And they're up for review again. So states typically anywhere in between 10 and 12 years engage in a standards review. This has been almost 15 years since we had some review with these standards. And the ELA and also Spanish language arts, so English language arts and Spanish language arts, that they're parallels, began their new process of revision last year, and they are just kind of wrapping up those processes. They are currently in a review cycle right now. The state is anticipating releasing those for publication at the end of this year in December. And standards are reviewed for a real variety of reasons, including, there may be new research about how students learn or what we need to emphasize. New events or updated knowledge about a content area. If we're talking about current events in a history or ethnic studies, there's lots of current events that are really important to fold in. There's changes in skills and knowledge that our regional employer partners tell us are really important for us to be including in our content area. It's another reason that we need to think about what are the standards that we have and what might need to shift. We make sure that those standards are suitable for specific grade levels and really stay current with the technological advances. So like I said, most states review anywhere in between 7 and 10 years. It's been 13 to 14 years for our standards, and the state is now updating those pieces. So therefore, because of this established cycle, we developed a forecast cycle to align with some of those revision plans. So you can see here that math, science, and English language arts were planned to be adopted this year. The revisions are in the final stage of review, like I said, and they're actually OSPI is currently soliciting feedback from practitioners across the state to help us to refine those different pieces. So we will not need to adopt new curricula to align with the updated Washington math standards because our instructional materials currently align to the Common Core standards, and they're going to continue that alignment in this revision status. The similar is with science. We will not need to adopt new curricula to have alignment. We are planning already on adopting new curricula because that cycle for elementary P5 science is due. We need to take a look at some of the coordination and alignment with our standards there. For ELA, however, the revisions are focused on actually preparing our students for secondary pathways, careers, civic engagement, and quite frankly, their personal lives. The ways in which students encounter and interact with information have really changed dramatically, and therefore it's resulting in an inclusion of media literacy and digital citizenship embedded within English language arts standards. So we anticipate when those are released at the end of this year, we'll see some modifications that include digital media literacy, including some other technological pieces, and just good digital citizenship. Some of those pieces are already embedded in some of the things we do now, but they'll be clearly outlined in the standards as well. So in preparation for this, we also want to call out that in 2028, the state is anticipating a new assessment. So we've had, if you're a veteran educator like me, you've lived through the WASL and the measures of student progress and the SBA, and there will be a new one in 2028 that will be aligned with these standards. So we want to ensure that our curricular resources give us enough opportunity if we need to shift to ensure that we'll have students prepared for that 2028 assessment when it rolls out. So why coordinating curriculum? Quite frankly, this is really important for us to ensure that we have inclusivity of all cultures and reflecting the families and the students within our communities. We talk a lot about windows and mirrors in curriculum, that we want our curricula to really reflect who our children are and engage in those really authentic instructional practices so that we have students who can see themselves within the curriculum. For this reason, we have an instructional materials committee, or what we call an IMC, and that's part of our board process, our procedure, excuse me, which includes several different appendices to review each curriculum, to vet it out. And that includes parents, that includes staff, that includes paraeducators, administrators. We actually also have a review that we open up to our community to provide feedback on some of our curricula as well. So we continue to assess the priority of timing around the availability of the high quality and standards aligned curriculum. And given the substantive costs, we want to make sure that we're making good choices when we have it. So one example is a few years ago, we looked to update our pre-calculus curriculum. We pulled together, it's not a large curriculum, but pre-calculus is important. It could potentially be the fourth year math. It's a quantitative math class that helps students to be prepared for college. And we engaged in it, we brought the adoption team in, and quite frankly, the materials that were available to us were not as good as the ones we currently had. So we actually kept our pre-calculus materials for another few years, and you'll see in the forecast that it's actually up for adoption this year. And we'll be engaging in that to see if there's additional materials that will help. So it's always important for us to have coordination, but it's also important for us to be flexible with those pieces. So the cost for curriculum adoptions, these are all fixed costs, and we call it, actually let me hide this really quickly. There we go. We have 3 different kinds of fixed costs with the adoptions, and that really starts with the adoption committee costs. These are usually incurred the year prior to the implementation, meaning that we are actually pulling together teams of administrators and teachers who use this curricula to provide us feedback and engage in really thoughtful dialogue around what is it that we need our students to do. We take a look at the standards. We usually have publishers who come and they will provide information. We check out digital tools. Digital tool review has been a really critical piece of our process in the last few years, not just because of having to pivot during a pandemic to virtual learning, but quite frankly, to expand students' opportunities in using tools that they're going to be using in real life. We get excited as we start looking at some of the adoption pieces that we have coming up and taking a look at what are the digital tools that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years. How does AI factor into some of those pieces? So we're excited about engaging in that work. Initial use fees, costs are really budgeted for those summertime or pre-implementation training. It's a significant cost because when you can, it's important for us to invest in good training, good materials, good support for our teaching staff, because you can't just hand somebody a textbook and say, here we go, good luck, let us know if you have questions. We really want to make sure that we're walking them through it, we're adjusting, and we really make a lot of intentional steps to help ensure that our teachers feel ready and prepared to teach the materials. And then finally, a fixed cost in our budget is the year 1 implementation. So these are student consumables, student use materials. Those usually fall in the fiscal year after the adoption cycle and into this next year so that we can make sure that students have everything they need. And we also roll in some factors about supplemental support training. So for example, the English language development, an ML, or multilingual learners curricula that we just adopted last year is in implementation now. We've been already pulling teachers back in and saying, how did Unit 1 go? What needs to be tweaked? What can we help to support for? What do we need to be thinking about as we're planning Unit 2? So there's a constant cycle of support when we do implementation and adoption processes. Hey, there we go. So now I'd like to share with you just some overview of each of the content, the different content areas, and kind of the scope and sequence of when we are planning on doing some implementation. So typically speaking, remember, the adoption committee works prior to this year. So the implementation year, for example, of the core English language arts, that's the 6-12 secondary curricula. We have College Board, Spring Board. That curricula will be sunsetting at the end of 2026. We got notice from publishers last year that they would not be continuing Springboard. They did extend it all the way until the end of 2026. So we have the access and we have those materials until 2026. which means we are going to engage in the 25-26 school year in the adoption committee. So we'll be pulling together secondary English language arts teachers, resource room teachers, administrators to engage fully and vet out what are our options for secondary literacy. The last adoption cycle is on there as well. You can see it was 2011 when that adoption cycle was last completed, and the estimated costs are around $665,000. So after that, we'll see preschool through 5th grade ELA phase 1 and phase 2 in 27 and 28. We're rolling those out. That's a substantial group of staff to be able to do the training on. We anticipate needing to break that into 2 pieces. You can see the price tag on it is anticipated. The budgeted price tag is pretty expensive, but we want to make sure that we're being fiscally conservative and also supporting teachers with their appropriate training that they need. 2028-29, AP Lang and AP Lit. And then finally in 29 and 30, taking a look at some of our college and the high school courses, University of Washington English, looking at what are some of those components that we may need to elevate to make sure that we're meeting the needs of those universities as well. In mathematics, there you can see the pre-calculus. The implementation year for that will be in 25-26. We're engaging in the adoption committee this year. And believe it or not, in 28 and 29, we're going to be looking at math grades 6 through 8 as a review. We know that the math standards have not changed through the standards review process with OSPI, but we're going to be looking at, well, what do we need to look at? That last adoption cycle was 2018. We just did the implementation of that, it feels like. But in 10 years, it's a good way of cycling through that, especially in mathematics, which is a field that's expanding specifically in the area of data science. 29-30, we'll look at secondary math, and believe it or not, 2030 and through 32, we'll be looking at a 2-phase adoption. We'll be reviewing our math, our P5 math, which we did just adopt, and it will. We think that price tag should be around $2 million there. In science and engineering, like I said, we were engaged in the adoption committee this year with our P5 science. We're going to probably roll that out into phase 1 and phase 2 just to ensure that we have some good fiscal stability, as well as making sure that we can get staff what they need. Rolling that in a 2-phase prong approach would be beneficial for them so that we're not overwhelming them. But also, we're excited because we'll be bringing to you in, I think, late April, an adoption recommendation for a new P5 science. In 28-29, we'll be looking again at the high school science. It will either be a core science, depending on what the NGSS, the next generation science standards look like, or we'll be looking at biology and environment and physics of the universe in 1 year. We'll do those 2 content areas. Career and technical education is a really unique area. Typically speaking, CTE has been a project-based content area that doesn't necessarily employ like a traditional textbook or curricula, and rather they use state frameworks instead of standards, right? They have frameworks that align with the state CTE standards, and they craft common experiences through projects. However, as CTE becomes more robust in our system, we do plan to do some curriculum reviews in 26-27, the implementation of mechatronics, which is actually, really involves around advanced manufacturing and industry-based mechanical engineering. It's the intersection of mechanics, electronics, computing, and it helps to create smarter systems. So that is something that we'll be looking at in the next years. And then computer science. This actually aligns with the state adopted adoption standards revision around computer science standards. So we wanted to ensure that we built in some components around that to ensure that we have the most cutting edge curricula to support the needs of our students. So with visual and performing arts, this one's a little bit interesting because we included the last adoption cycle, and we do not have data on the last adoption cycle for any of these content areas. We're currently engaged in an adoption process with P5 General Music. That will be another adoption that we'll be proposing to the board for recommendation in the spring. And you might be thinking, well, what might that look like? What does music curriculum look like? And we currently are engaging in those processes of what are the standards, what are students expected to know and be able to do at the end of each grade level, And you might remember the state has actually shifted. There are requirements for fine arts within our programs, and we want to ensure that we're not only hitting the standards, but trying to give a standardized experience to students across the district. So if we're going to have recorders in one school at 4th grade, we want to make sure that all schools have that opportunity. So coming together to talk a little bit about what can we do to provide a coordinated and aligned curricula for each of these different components, and what are the equipment and materials and resources that we can provide for staff. So we think about choral music, instrumental music, tubas are expensive, and we want to ensure that we've got what we need to make sure that our schools continue to be able to have the robust programs that they do with our visual and performing arts. Health and fitness is up for, we have 2 adoptions that will be coming up for implementation in 26-27 and 27-28, and that's PE, high school health and fitness. They were last adopted in 2008. That's a pretty substantial, that's a long time ago. But the nice thing about this is that we'll have the opportunity to really capture some of the different pieces that have been updated. We've just recently done some updating with our sexual education, comprehensive sexual education and health. But these pieces will really be focused on what are the common experiences students should have in physical education P5, and what are the components that we want to support and adopt for high school health and fitness. And then language acquisition, which is a relatively new thing for us, but we have a continued adoption for the K-5 Spanish language arts. We call this a rolling implementation. It was adopted in 2020, but we have, because the dual language program at Emerson only starts, we have kindergarten, and then we have kindergarten and 1st grade, and then we have kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade. We're currently at kinder, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. So in the next 2 years, we'll be bringing on the training and implementation of the 4th and 5th grade curricula. At the same time, we'll be growing our dual language program. Silver Lake will open, starting with kindergarten. We won't need another adoption program or adoption process because we'll already have adopted it. We will just purchase those materials and engage in the training components of that. And then in 27 through 2030, believe it or not, we'll be looking at what middle school dual language looks like, and really looking at Spanish language arts in 6th through 8th. And then finally in 2030 and 31, we'll be looking at world languages, German, French, Spanish, including the AP classes at the high school, and thinking about what, as our students roll up from a dual language middle school, what are some of those courses that they should be taking. Hopefully the goal is that by 8th grade, students who are engaged in a dual language program will have that seal of biliteracy already attained by passing the world language assessment, but it still might provide opportunities for them to be able to dive deep and take Spanish, AP Spanish language, AP Spanish literature, maybe a heritage or some cultural components in the high school as well. So we'll be exploring that in 2029 and 30. And then finally, social studies. In 26-27, we'll be implementing grade 6 world history, grade 8 US history, and then we'll be taking a look at those high school core history classes, and then following that, we'll be looking at the AP offerings that we provide in the social studies content areas. So overall, our budgeted cost over the next 7 years is about $10.3 million. And that's just in those fixed costs with the adoptions and engaging in professional learning, really focused on making sure that our staff feel confident and comfortable delivering the information, delivering the content to our students. We do budget an annual budget cost of about $3 million for maintenance. That's additional consumable materials, or if we need digital subscriptions, that's a significant cost increase in the last few years. But it's about $3 million, which is probably about, I'd probably say about $0.6 million more than we expected this year. Our numbers are estimates. They always consider annual enrollment. We are really conscientious about kind of keeping tabs on what our enrollment looks like, making sure that we have the adequate materials, making sure that we can shift materials as they need to be so that we don't always have to buy new. And then growing interest in particular areas. We have some really great courses and we have amazing instructors. So as kids get more interest in different areas, we find that we're growing some of our content areas, shrinking some of those content areas. And so those are things that we kind of factor into our budgets. So moving forward, we always are looking for those additional review, like what is the current curricula in all content areas? to make sure that we always have multiple perspectives. There are things that we need to be more inclusive on. There are things that shift and change. And so that's part of our process. And the academics office and cabinet always review those priority areas for materials that are aligned with our strategic priorities. What are we doing differently in math and science to help to support those priority student outcomes? But there's another group of people that are really influential in that, and that is our teacher practitioners. Our para-educators in the classroom, our teachers in the classroom, help to provide us that feedback on what's important, what do we need to support differently, and how can we help them. So this is all in coordination with the adoption needs and coupled with long-term fiscal planning. And we always monitor those short-term implications, the digital subscriptions, the content. AI will be a big factor as we start looking at how can we help to support teachers who are using tools, AI tools that we use right now, like Turnitin, or looking at different opportunities to support students as they're exploring AI and how it can help them not to get the assignments done, but to learn in a more meaningful way. So with that, I thank you for your engagement and your time this evening and look forward to presenting to you in several months with some new adoptions.
Say I looked and you have quite a few this year and next year.
We do. We're playing catch up.
Yeah, so thank you. Any questions or comments? Yeah, Director Herman?
First of all, I have a couple of questions for cost-wise. So curriculum, textbooks, that falls under MSOC, and that allocation that we receive, an enhancement for 9 to 12, that ends up being for our district around the 3 million, a little bit above, right? So that's an annual, what we can expect statewide, state support to get.
Yes,
That's
and I
a
rely on my finance colleagues to help me out with those pieces. But the nice thing is that when we look at things like this, that's why we do our forecasts. We share it with them so that as some of those legislative pieces kind of move into place and we're starting to look at, are we going to get less money or more money? What do we need to do differently and how do we need to conserve? So we are always planning together, always thinking about how we can help to support what we need to have done and how we can do it in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, I was just thinking the maintenance, I think we'll have covered. It's the additional that we've been budgeting for and we've talked about before in budget discussions.
You're correct. In the basic education program area, we get about 3.2 to 3.3. This year, the 23-24 fiscal year, it's going to be about 3.2. We're budgeting about 3.3 in the MSOC piece. The piece that's not really funded around that is the amount of professional development we need to provide alone for that. So it manages the maintenance piece of it, but what some of the additional cost really is getting teachers here and the substituting for the training piece of it, and that's what's really the lack of funding and sometimes why those adoptions are so significant, because we need a lot of teachers' engagement for that professional development as well.
Terrific, yeah, to roll it out well, thank you.
Yeah.
And then a couple other quick ones for classes like PE and music, things like ukulele, erg machines. Do we have the ability to share between schools that a unit happens at different times in the year?
We do. We actually, we do that we have some systems already built in for that. So for example, a good example is our science kits, our elementary science kits that we currently use. So we have a section of the district that uses kits A. So they may be doing physical science and earth science in buildings on like the north side of the district in the fall. And then in the south side of the district, they will be doing those kits in the spring, and then we flip-flop. So we don't have to have all of the units taught all at the same time. It takes a Herculean effort from our Science Resource Center to make that turnaround happen. And it also, there's a lot of internal tracking around if we have a split class somewhere and boy, they had their first graders and second graders and they have a first grade science kit. What's an alternative kit that can still hit the standards and is designed specifically to ensure that students have first grade standards and second grade standards and that they don't have to repeat if they go into a second grade that's not a split the next year. So there's a lot of work around how do we help orchestrate that. The health and fitness and CTE department does a lot of delivering of materials just to ensure that we can share those pieces so that we can be conservative, but also provide the opportunities, materials, and resources that kids need to have a really meaningful experience.
That's a good point. Thank you. And then just real quickly, college and the high school, they do not dictate our textbooks, do they? That's an agreement.
It's an agreement, that's correct.
Okay.
And so what we usually will do is rather than look at like what is the university adopting, the university has standards and a framework of this is what needs to be taught. And we then can say, what are some other resources that we might need to be able to reach that? Maybe it's some of the existing materials that we have in English 4, English 3, maybe it's something new and different that we need to explore. So that's why we put it on there, so that we can ensure that if we get to that point, we want to make sure that we're engaging those teachers and what are some additional curriculum supports that we can provide for you that's going to help to facilitate those college courses.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Can you help me understand what phase 1 and phase 2 looks like on an implementation when you have it over 2 years, like especially with science, like they do the new kits and then how does that work?
So one of the things, and we haven't gotten all the details figured out yet for the P5 science because we don't know what the curriculum might look like. If it's kit-based, we might be doing some different things. We have some options. We can do things like specific grade bands. We could do K2 in the first year of the phase, and we could do 3-5 in the second year, or we could reverse that, do 3-5 first and then K2. We might decide to do, rather than do a grade band, we may elect to do kindergarten, second grade, and fourth grade in phase 1, and then the off grades in phase 2. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to take advantage of the amount of sub days that we have, to release all of our elementary teachers at the same time to do work like that is really cost prohibitive. It's expensive. It's hard to find subs, and we want to ensure that we have the opportunity to do the professional learning so that they can implement the curriculum well. So it may mean that we roll it into a phase of certain grade levels the first year. We would not be okay with doing it with, like, we'll do these schools in year 1 and these schools in year 2. We feel strongly that we want not only our teachers in buildings to collaborate, we want teachers cross-district to collaborate. That cross-pollination, when teachers really start talking with each other and working with each other, it's very powerful professional learning. So we have a commitment that if we do phases, we will break it into manageable chunks so that we can staff it appropriately, ensure that we have the release time that we need to do it right. And we'll have a second phase the following year to ensure that we can get the grades that we haven't mastered yet.
Okay, great. And just real quick on tonight's consent agenda and the vouchers, there were quite a few digital subscriptions in there. I mean, I think a couple $1 million worth.
Yes.
And my question really is around the change in costs, which might include Andy on this question, of having textbooks versus now more digital subscriptions and consumables versus not. And, you know, as our digital program has progressed, how does that look? What has the trend been?
I would say that the trend has been very clear. 6-12 has been more towards digital resources, less towards actual paper, pencil, consumable materials. We are super lucky that we have taxpayers that have afforded us that capital levy to have a one-to-one device for our students, right? And that makes a lot of difference. So kids are really comfortable turning things in digitally, accessing digital curriculum, reading things online. There's a high level of proficiency with that. And so we find that our 6-12 materials tend to have a lot more digital subscriptions. It is definitely less expensive than buying consumable books all of the time, but not much.
Yeah.
The publishers, I think, are definitely aware that digital subscriptions are still something that they can make money on, but it does allow our students to actually navigate the digital world and get them practicing some of those pieces. I would say that we have found with our P5 pieces, there is still a significant need for consumables. There's still a significant need for actual textbooks. And specifically in a lot of content areas in reading and in like social studies and in science, there's a need for nonfiction books for students to actually hold and read. So we do have like the Reach subscriptions that we have, this Engage, where students can do shared reading on the flat panel. They can engage in some of those literacy activities. there's still a great call for actually having books in the hands of children. So I think it's probably a little bit balanced, but we're seeing some of the cost savings and with digital subscriptions, especially like when we're thinking about things like history and things like that, as publishers revise, we don't have to buy all new brand textbooks when you get to a revision 3 and things like that. We may have to re-up a subscription, but the beauty of that is it updates they'll update it on a pretty regular basis. So there's some cost savings there and shipping and things like that, but they're still pretty pricey, especially if they're a per pupil cost.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay. Thank you very much.
So that moves us to section 15.0, new business. Mr. Fleckenstein, you have several policies tonight, and I think I'm just going to make it easy and let you make each introduction and just proceed through them.
Well, thank you, President Mitchell. And to begin tonight, we'll begin with 1621, Board Superintendent Operating Protocols. The proposed revisions are the result of discussion by the board during their August board retreat. Revisions provide clarification on current practices and protocols, including Director OPMA and PDC training requirements per RCW 4230-205. The proposed revisions to Policy 1621 have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet prior to this meeting. And I would just point out for the directors, there was an inquiry about simplification to the bullet here on the screen that says attend and receive. We have amended that since its original draft to simplify it and just make reference to the state law for for its initial and then continuing training of board members.
Thank you. I have some questions, but does anybody else have any questions or comments? So I have my 2 things then, and then others can join in. On page 2, paragraph 4, so it's a big paragraph in the middle, where it starts, the board superintendent team considers a major issue to be one in which students or staff safety, significant liability, or broad public concern could reasonably be attached. I wonder about that broad public concern reasonably attached. Just sounds like antiquated language, and so it would be, just a question, and then but then it sort of goes. So that reasonably attached was just sort of antiquated, I think, and then in the page 5, you don't have to go down to there, but it cross-references. Maybe we could cross-reference these 5 priorities, which have to do with the, under which case, board members really need to be concerned, board requests. And so it is just sort of the fact that if there is a safety, or it happens to be with a budget goal, something like that. But just wasn't sure about what that, I know it's probably a legal term, but it's concerns could reasonably attached. That confused me, so I don't know if anybody knows what those words would really mean in today's language.
I think it, if I may, I
Yes,
think it refers
please.
to a reasonable connection. Is
Okay.
what it intends to mean, as opposed to attached. But I think that's the gist of
Okay.
what it's trying to get to.
Okay, that's fine, because it's just semantics. But then on same page, the last paragraph on the page, on page 2, says that, and I thought we had talked about this at our retreat, I think it's the last paragraph on page, did I do the wrong page? Hold on just a second. Wrote down the wrong page in my notes, I apologize. Sorry. Oh, it is the paragraph right before open public meeting. Thank you. I thought we decided at the board retreat that board members will call the school principal or stop in the office prior to visiting the campus, that we would do all school visits with communication with the regionals, And that, if we're invited into a school by a teacher or somebody, that just letting the regionals know, but that we don't have I thought we agreed on not having a drop-in behavior of just stopping by and saying, hey, I'm at your school, to the principal.
That just caught my eye as well. I was reading that, and that's not what we discussed, I don't think, at the summer workshop, that, first of all, we don't call principals. Like, we email them if we're gonna,
So it's that
go
last
by.
paragraph
But-
before open public meeting.
But somewhere in here, I recall,
Page 2.
we just said all communications would go through
Page 2,
bottom of page 2.
the bottom of page 2, before open public meeting. That communication between district staff and board is encouraged. Board members will call the school principal or stop by the office prior to visiting classes or the campus. And I thought we decided at our summer workshop that we wouldn't have a behavior of dropping in to a school and would work. So, so Caroline, I interrupted you.
No, I said,
Okay.
I'm just concurring.
So I'm glad to add a component to that about
Yeah.
communication with the regional superintendent.
Yeah.
If I may ask specifically, are you asking that at this concurrently or prior to arriving on a campus?
Well, I
there's
think that-
communication, just so as I make the revision, I'm clear.
Yes, I think it was sort of, if we've been invited, usually it's days ahead. So if we've been invited to an event or something by a teacher, or to help out, like, with an activity, just say, hey, I'm going to be in your school, like an email, hey, I'm going to be in the school on this date, and taking out that prior to a visit in a class, or calling the principal, but really we'll communicate to the regional well ahead of a visit to a school, so that it's not, because I think that no surprises at the beginning of, nobody wants me driving past Penny Creek and saying, hey, I've got a half an hour, I'm just going to pop in and go see so-and-so. I mean, I think that's what we talked at the summer event, the burden of us being in schools.
Might I make a suggestion?
Yes,
I think the
please.
second sentence can just be removed, and then it's,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great point. Thank you.
I'm trying to recall just, there were several policies that were
Yeah.
amended, and I think this also, what you're referring to is in another one of the policy revisions that we made, but not here.
okay.
So what I think, what I will research, and I definitely will make an adjustment before it's submitted for second reading. But I will look back to the other policies that were revised, because I do believe we addressed that in a different one. It might be board superintendent communication.
Could be.
But we also changed some wording on titles, and so
Yeah.
I will go back and look,
Right,
but this
or
will
we
get straightened out.
Can remove the whole paragraph if it's captured in a different policy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that whole paragraph, just because it keeps us out of the school's business without letting the leaders know that we'll be there appropriately.
Good. Would you like this to be revised and come back for a different first reading?
I don't think so. I think as long as that paragraph is either removed or cleaned up, with that, either the paragraph or the second sentence, if the whole paragraph exists someplace else.
Okay, I think I have what I need. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move that one to second reading with those modifications.
Next, we have proposed revisions to comply for 4210 high school graduation requirements. These revisions comply with the State Board of Education rules now that the graduation requirements emergency waiver, or the GRU, is no longer available. I'm going to miss saying GRU. Additionally, additions to the policy include the performance-based pathway option for students to meet graduation requirements in math or English language arts. And that's related to a presentation you saw earlier tonight from Dr. Willard about the CCRS course and its ability to meet those pathway requirements. Graduation requirements language for the class of 2021 is also being removed from this policy, as those students have now aged out of our system. The proposed revisions to policy 2410 high school graduation requirements have been reviewed by the superintendent's cabinet.
Okay, are there any questions? This is routine business every year. Okay, then we'll move that one to second reading.
Next, we have Policy 3430, Comprehensive Safe Schools Plan. The proposed revisions presented this evening are to comply with RCW 28A 320-125, which states that district safe school plans shall now include how substitute teachers and other temporary employees receive necessary information about safe school plans, including school safety policies and procedures, and the 3 basic safety drill responses that we have and that we drill and record. Revisions to this policy have been previously reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet.
Are there any questions or comments? I had been misspeaking. By general consent, we will move this to second reading.
Next, we have 4215 Title I Parent and Family Engagement. The proposed revisions are to reflect recently updated Title I Part A law to better support disadvantaged students. These changes aim to enhance educational equity by providing additional resources and support to schools with high percentages of low-income students. The most salient changes are contained within the related procedure 4215P. In addition, the title is changing from Title I Parent and Family Engagement to Title I Part A Parent and Family Engagement. The proposed revisions have been previously reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Just a quick question with the procedure that goes along with it. It talks about a school parent compact and that Title I schools have, and it's presented, it's shared during conferences. Can you just give a quick, just a brief description of what that might look like?
I don't have the procedure in front of me exactly, but I believe what you're referring to is Title I funding does have several different requirements. One of those requirements is family engagement. Through that process, the compact in terms of a support plan for the use of the funds is generated. Each of our schools has a Title I, has their plans for how they will use those funds. And in there, it's a requirement to identify your family engagement.
Document, school generated, it sounds like.
I can't speak directly to that piece of it. So
No,
I'm
it's-
glad to have a colleague come up.
Yes, Larry described it very well. It is a formal document. It is signed by the school and it's signed by the family. And it lays out what the school will do and then what the family will do as well. And then it's signed and it's documentation. It is required for Title I. It's a pretty, it lays out the interventions or other kinds of supports that the school has, and also here's the family part, here's what you'll engage in. And they generally, there's lots of options and they check some, like I'm gonna come to this night and I'm gonna do these things. So it's a way of ensuring that family engagement and that they are, that communication and involvement that our communications director talked about earlier, that they really feel engaged and involved.
Fantastic, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, by general consent, we'll move that one to second reading.
All right, clipping through here. The next one is 5160, sexual harassment. Revisions to policy 5160 are to comply with new Title IX rules that went into effect on August 1st, 2024. The new Title IX rules outline prohibitions on sex-based harassment and specific requirements for school districts to respond to complaints of sex-based discrimination. These rules represent a shift in federal standards for how schools must respond, school districts, to sexual harassment and a realignment with existing Washington sexual harassment guidelines. Being a policy in our 5000 series, this policy pertains specifically to district staff, not students. In addition, the title is changing from sexual harassment to sex discrimination and sex-based harassment of staff prohibited. And you may recall we've already brought forward the student version of this, and the board had adopted it on first reading because of its urgency. The revised policy 5160, sexual harassment, has been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, by general consent, we'll move that one to second reading.
Right, next we have policy 5320.2, illness, injury, and emergency leave. The proposed revisions align our existing policy with language derived from RCW 4946-210, which includes a grandchild and a sibling as a family member by definition within the law, and have been reviewed by legal counsel and superintendent's cabinet prior to inclusion in these revisions.
I think that was something that was obviously an oversight, and I'm glad it was corrected. Any other questions or comments? Then we'll move that to second reading by general consent.
And finally, we have 6220 requirements for bids and contracts. The proposed revisions incorporate changes to bid laws pertaining to small works rosters based on changes to the Interlocal Cooperation Act per Chapter 39.34 RCW. Changes regarding the Interlocal Cooperation Act include allowing districts to utilize other governmental entities' bids. The revisions also reflect the language in the statutes authorizing interlocal agreements for procurement, as well as best practices as identified by the State Auditor's Office. Proposed revisions to Policy 6220, requirements for bids and contracts, have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet.
Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move that one. Oh, yes, thank you.
Is there, I guess what I think about is, that sole source for Sonitrol today, where it's really a service contract associated with a bunch of stuff that's already installed. Could we make an exception to the sole source requirement for that situation so that it doesn't have to come back to the board? Or is that, like a policy govern that?
I would have to
Sorry, yeah, I just
look
thought about
further
it.
into
Yeah,
your
sorry.
question. I'm not prepared this evening to answer it, but I'm happy to get a response back to you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, no, it's good. So we'll move that one to second reading by general consent. My wording tonight. Okay, so we're on the home stretch. Section 16.0, upcoming agenda items. Dr. Saltzman, what is planned for upcoming meetings?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and the public. At the October 11th special meeting, the board will attend the Cocoon House 19th Annual Evening and Silk event. At the October 22nd regular meeting, the board agenda will contain the following: technology plan update, several policies for second reading, spotlight, student-based health centers, preliminary fourth quarter financial report and fiscal outlook, enrollment update, highly capable program grant, the Granite Falls School District inter-district agreement, Jackson Elementary School constructability report, college and the high school contract with Edmonds College, Limitless Learning Network monetary gift, the Harmony Tours contract for Jackson High School Music Department, Gertrude Jackson Advisory Board, and instructional and library surplus. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Directors.
Thank you. That moves us to section 17.0, executive or closed session. There is none during this meeting. Section 18.0 is adjournment. This concludes the October 8, 2024 regular meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. This meeting is now adjourned.